I don't even have any books. Right, here we go. We're live. Hi, folks. Thanks for joining us. Bear with me a wee second. We're all good here, I think. Yeah, we've had lots of doggies barking outside there for a second. Excuse me. Thought I'd have to bring them in, but they've just gone quiet. So let me see if anybody's out there in YouTube land. Say hello as we get ready to have a wee look at chapter 23 of Dune. Excuse me a wee second. There we go. Yeah. Okie dokie. Once again, just with life, I'm just getting this finished just before we, literally about 5 minutes ago. Getting very little time to get at our work these days. But we're staying on top of it, fingers crossed, and we're hoping to get a wee bit ahead of it. Oh dear. So previously we just finished up with chapter 22 of Dune, and that's part 1 of Dune, and we've hit a natural break in the book. And the natural break occurs within, I suppose the actual break here occurs within the action of going into this still suit. Sorry, this still tent, I do apologize. And of course, so book 1 of Dune ends in as Paul and Jessica go into this tent and seek refuge in it. Book 2 of Dune, entitled Muad'Dib, really begins as they spend the day in this tent and then emerge at night. And as Paul emerges from this still tent, he ceases to be Paul Atreides, really. And at this point, he has become Paul Muad'Dib Atreides, if you like. So there's a whole pile of similarities between what happens in this chapter. Sorry, folks, bear with me. I'm going to have to close a window here. Right. Okay, because we've got a lot of noise outside, so it's just very distracting for me. Because the dogs are all barking away. There's a whole pile of them. It's not ours just as well. So apologies about that. There's Babs saying evening dog. Evening Babs, thanks for joining us. Hope you're keeping well. And as I said, yeah, just rushing at this stuff, trying to get it done tonight. So I do apologize. I've had a few murky days here, but we've been trying to make a lot of adjustments to our house and trying to get things organized a wee bit. There's Cynthia saying hi, dog, and Babs. Hi, Cynthia. Thanks for joining us. As usual, I hope you're all keeping well, looking after yourselves. So there's a natural break here, and I have made a few wee up you get and behave. Come on. There you go. Put my hoodie where the dog sits. Right, sorry, we're getting doggies coming in there. Chris, how's the cough, dog? A lot better. Chris, thanks for asking. We've all had a throat infection here. So my throat's not the best at all times, but simply, I suppose, just trying to do this throughout the weekend. We did take a bit of a break one night. Excuse me, and I've completely run out of cough sweets and throat lozenges, and my honey is starting to crystallize, so I'll have to grab some more honey. But it's getting a lot better, and I had just a sort of bit of today, clearing out the old sinuses, and I have a funny thing with my head. It's to do with negative pressure as well, which is to do with me not being able to hear properly. And I've just got all the dogs are in the doghouse now. Hello, ladies. And honestly, yeah, I'll say we've got 3 now. So, but yeah, it's getting better. My son's just come down really badly with it. It's a nasty wee infection, to be honest with you. Excuse me. So I'm getting there. Usually I do a fair bit of spluttering at the start anyway. Yeah, it's not one of my best attributes, I have to say. But usually the old throat clears up once we get going, as long as there's plenty of fluids. But I'm a person who talks an awful lot, Chris, anyway. I tend to talk to myself a fair bit as well. One of the signs of madness, isn't it? So, no, I had a few I was just having a few wee thoughts, and I've left a couple. You know that I'm working with this. For those who are joining us, by the way, for the first time, thanks very much for popping into the book club. We're working through Dune, and we're annotating the heck out of it, if you like. We're at chapter 23, which is a natural split in the book, beginning book 2 of Dune, which is entitled Muad'Dib. So, I'm not too sure, perhaps, if we'll do it tonight. But I thought it's also a good point to have a little bit of a think about everything that we've read and see if any kind of things that are cropping up or popping up or taking our attention. sort of really with the fall of Arakeen, I suppose I wanted to have a good natter about all the House of Atreides, all of that kind of stuff, the Trojan War stuff that's there. And particularly too, wanted to sort of explain it in terms of considering that thinking of the Emperor as Zeus, if you like, all to do with weddings and stuff. But there's a whole pile of stuff to do with Dr. Yueh, etc. There's some stuff I'll have a wee chat about tonight about The Dragon in the Sea, which is Frank Herbert's first book. There's a fair amount of similarities to what's in this chapter with what happens with the crew of the submarine, if you like. Which is known as the Fenian Ram in his first novel, The Dragon in the Sea. So we'll have a wee natter about that whenever we get to it. But also, yeah, as I said, guys, we might maybe sort of run a wee bit with this possibly on Friday. Excuse me. I was looking to have a wee look at, in fact, I might still do this. We'd sort of had a chat on our Science Fiction Friday that we might take a wee look at it's an article written by Michael Moorcock called Epic Poo, but we might run over some of this, I suppose, outside of book club stuff. Maybe just have a wee chat about some of the motifs in Dune and the way some of the actions worked here. But in relation to The Dragon of the Sea, I have written some stuff on it, and I'm not too sure if it survives properly, but I've actually copied it over to the desktop, so we'll see what's in there, and I'll point out a couple of wee things. Hopefully. But if anybody's not familiar with The Dragon in the Sea, by the way, you might know it by a different name. It's got 3 different titles, this novel. Frank Herbert's first book, The Dragon in the Sea, which Under Pressure, which I believe is Frank's preferred title. And it's also got a rather naff 21st century subtitle as well. So we're talking about the same book. And if anybody's into submarine novels, it's a very good submarine thriller, if you like, with a heavy chunk of science fiction. Excuse me a wee second, folks. I can hear people talking outside. Oh, there we go. Right, goodness, it's all noisy here tonight, and everybody's meant to be sick and in bed. There we go. Just closed doors, or it's just open doors and windows. Everybody's behaving quite well here. So we have quite a lengthy epigraph to begin with. Hello. Oh, cough sweets. Thank you. I can't eat them online. That's the only thing. Oh dear, I'll end up munching. That'd be much worse than coughing, wouldn't it? Right, epigraph 23. Let's get on with this. This is a very short chapter, I'm very pleased to say, though we've got a reasonable one after it. So epigraph 23 from In My Father's House by the Princess Irulan. Let's just have a wee read. When my father, the Padishah Emperor, heard of Duke Leto's death and the manner of it, he went into such a rage as we had never before seen. He blamed my mother and the compact forced on him to place a Bene Gesserit on the throne. He blamed everyone. Oh, sorry, I missed a sentence there. He blamed the guild and the evil old baron. He blamed everyone in sight, not excepting even me, for he said I was a witch like all the others. And when I sought to comfort him, saying it was done according to an older law of self-preservation to which even the most ancient rulers gave allegiance, he sneered at me and asked if I thought him a weakling. I saw then that he had been aroused to this passion not by concern over the dead duke, but by what that death implied for all royalty. As I look back on it, I think there may have been some prescience in my father too, for it is certain that his line and Muad'Dib's shared common ancestry. There we go. There's quite a bit in this, but before we actually get into the chapter itself, I would argue why is this the epigraph here? What's the point of this one at this point in the story, if you like? And I think it's really it's to do with this never before seen, the rage that we have from the Emperor. Now, there's a few different things in here, but in terms of running it with the action in this chapter, we do have that little bit of Paul's rage that we're going to see. And I guess if they have a common ancestry, then it's a common trait that Paul, this rage, if you like. So the major thing is to do with the Duke Leto's, his death. It's the manner of his death. This is what sends the Emperor into rage. So just running through that quickly, he blames Irulan's mother, the Emperor's wife, the compact that's forced on him to place a Bene Gesserit on the throne. There is a deal in place with the Emperor. And it's been forced upon him. There's some sort of deal there, but it's not something he wants, but it's in place. The guild, the Baron, everybody inside, even me, even Irulan, she's a witch just like all the others. Irulan seeks, in this passage we're told, seeks to comfort him. And she says, it was done according to an older law of self-preservation. And even the most ancient rulers ally themselves to this. Right, excuse me, folks. Right, Matthew, keep doors closed, please, would you, son? Sorry, you're coming out loud and proud. Excuse me. As I said, it's everybody coming in coughing. My son's his throat's gone really. He's been fine up until probably yesterday, and he's just gone and he's coughing away there. It's not his fault, but it's my hearing's very funny today, and it's everything. Every noise is distracting me really quite easily. Especially when right. Let's have a wee look. So let me see. So it's done according to self-preservation. And I don't know if I would agree with that or not. And he sneered and asked if I thought him was a weakling. So we also, carrying on from the previous chapter, we had we've had a few of these things to do with the attitude to weakness. The Emperor and the Sardaukar in particular, their attitude to this kind of thing. So again, it's, they're a bit hung up on appearing to be weak, I think. Now, what aroused him to this passion? Not concern over the dead Duke. So really, it's nothing to do with his death. It's the manner of his death and what that death implied for all royalty. So in this Pfeiffer-like system, I suppose. I suppose it depends on how much of it is public knowledge, really. But so essentially, he's drugged, tied up like a hog roast, isn't he? And to be sort of tortured, and it has really bad implications. I suppose the idea is that royalty are different and should have different treatment. What it applies, and particularly for the Emperor, I think, I don't know what you think about this, guys, but it's what it means here really is that if this is what they can do to Duke Leto, that we can happily do it to the Emperor, we can happily do it to the Baron. And it really does, if you think about what Leto II says much, much later down the road in terms of God Kings and stuff like this, it shows them to be fallible mortals. They can be killed just like, you and me. So there's all sorts of questions we can ask about the universe that Dune is set in, particularly about the separation within society. And I wonder, is melange possibly just is it, as much as it's a universal drug, who takes it? And what I mean by that is, do poor peasants take it, if you see what I mean? Or is it simply, if it's incredibly expensive, it surely must be out of the reach of the poor. And certainly if we have a feudal system, that's pretty much anyone who's not noble, I think. Regarding, Cynthia says, there's Bojack Harkness thumbs up. Cynthia says, regarding the compact mentioned, are the Bene Gesserit forcing the Emperor to place on one of their own on the throne? Sounds like a new strategy, no longer exists, only to serve. Simply put, it's he's on the throne and he's got 5 daughters. So whoever the throne goes to is going to be whoever marries, I assume, the eldest daughter, and that's Irulan, I think. And simply put, whoever marries that, whichever one of his daughters, is going to be the new emperor. That person will be a product of is a product of the Bene Gesserit breeding program. I mean, I often get the sense that the idea of it being a generation late is that they're, the way I get it, Cynthia, is this is the way I think it's meant to work. We've got to go one generation down. So if we imagine, let's say Fade, or if Paul Atreides was a girl, then there would be no marriage possible to House Carino. So that would be out. It would leave the marriage open to one of these Harkonnens, which is the bloodline that they're manipulating, as well as the Atreides. So it would mean that Feyd Rautha most likely would marry Irulan, and then they would have a child. And we know what, by the time we get to the book, at the end of the book, we're well aware of what's been done to Feyd. Feyd has no control. The Bene Gesserit have him, even though he doesn't know it. And simply put, the way I think the route to the throne of the Emperor is that Feyd and Irulan will only produce daughters, and they'll put one on the throne. Either that, or they'll produce a son that's completely controlled by the Bene Gesserit from the point of birth, and put that on the throne. And I think that's where the Kwisatz Haderach's meant to be. And in terms of the Bene Gesserit, again, they exist only to serve. Yeah, I think you can just take that as propaganda, like everything else. There is actually, I've made a wee note about this, something as well. We'll have a wee chat about it later. There's something quite fascistic about, if that's the word, fascist, about about the Bene Gesserit. And who are they really? You know, we obviously, we get to that point, don't we? I suppose that there is a head reverend mother kind of thing in a council, I think, much later on. But who's giving orders, and why should any woman take them, I suppose, is the point I was getting to. But yeah, it sounds like that's, excuse me, that's where I think the plan was going. And it makes sense with, as I said, when we get to the end of the book with Feyd, we'll have a wee chat about it again. But so the idea would be to marry Feyd Rautha, I think, to Irulan, and the product of that union is at that point would be the Kwisatz Haderach. I think Irulan's meant to give birth to the Kwisatz Haderach. And if the Atreides and the Emperor are cousins, we get this, they're related. We get the suggestion that the Harkonnens are also related. The Baron keeps calling Leto dear cousin. There's Chaya saying shalom, shalom Chaya. Thank you very much for joining us. So yeah, it's a question of, and of course we don't. This is the plan that was meant. One of the two plans that we're told of at the start of the book. There's a Bene Gesserit plan, and then there's the Emperor and the Harkonnens plan. And both plans extend beyond what's happening on Arrakis here, I suppose. There's more to them than their initial. I suppose, yeah. There's always some aspect of the plan that's down the road, if you see what I mean, that we've yet to get to. So it kind of reminded me on a couple of things as well. It reminded me, for example, of the death of Pompey. And Caesar's attitude to it. This is a Roman. We don't. This kind of thing. And I suppose that, yeah, something I really hadn't thought about too much, but we'll get to it. As I wanted to talk about Leto, and the way he sort of killed. Who am I thinking on? Bear with me a wee second. I've used this image in the Dune videos. Vercingetorix, I'm thinking on. It's Vercingetorix, I'm thinking on. And we have got King of the King of the Arverni. Let me see. Yeah. The picture that we've used quite a few times when we're talking about Western man's impact on, I suppose, native populations, that kind of thing. The picture that we used quite a bit within that was the surrender of Vercingetorix. If you have a wee look at Vercingetorix on Wikipedia, you'll find on that page an image which is Vercingetorix throws down his arms at the feet of Julius Kaiser, as I like to call him, by Lionel Royer from 1899. It's a fantastic picture. The death of Vercingetorix is pretty vile, I think. Just tell you what Wikipedia says. He was doesn't really give much on it. There's a fair bit to it, I'm pretty sure. Vercingetorix was imprisoned in the Tullianum in Rome for almost 6 years before being publicly displayed in the first of Kaiser's 4 triumphs in 46 before the Christian era. He was ceremoniously strangled at the temple of Jupiter Optimus Maximus after the triumph. A plaque in the Tullianum that indicates that he was beheaded in 49 BCE. There we go. So the noble Gaul, this kind of thing. I think there's a fair amount of that with Leto actually, but that's nipping back a wee bit. Anyway, so the idea of common ancestry had, and again, I think there's stuff here to do with Irulan as well. Even she's a witch, but it really does. What does it mean for royalty? What does it mean for the emperor? This appalling death, and it also made me think of the Romanovs. And for example, what that meant for what we call the British royal family, if you like, who all ended up changing their names and this kind of thing. Because I suppose the sense of most of the European and all the way up into the Russian royal families are all kind of connected in a way. Cynthia says, thanks. Agreed regarding ambiguity of who the Bene Gesserit are. Yeah. There's many wanderings in Dune, I think. So here we go. We get our opening line of Paul Muad'Dib, and this is chapter 1 of book 2, Muad'Dib. Here are his first words. Now Harkonnen shall kill Harkonnen, Paul whispered. That's the opening line of this book. This is a 15-year-old boy talking about killing. And I suppose familial slaughter, if you like, familial homicide. And as we've always pointed out, if you want to know the major signifier of all of the Pelopids, including the House of Atreides, it is familial homicide. This family, the family, as much as he's going on a Harkonnen, he's an Atreides as well, I suppose. The House of Atreides, it's familial slaughter. And it's arguably one of the reasons why I suggested that the Atreides, and it is a real name, isn't it? I suppose there are plenty of Atreides out there, real Greek name, surname in that sense. I often thought that particular family, it would be very doubtful that they ever get to this far in the future. I figured they'd have all slaughtered each other by this point. Let me grab a wee pen here. Right, okay. Let's swap your notebooks over. So yeah, it's just I suppose it's just as much as Dune is a buildings Roman, a coming of age story, etc. Here we go. This is a moment within this tent, a great change for Paul. Harkonnen shall kill Harkonnen is a 15-year-old boy talking about killing within his own family, if you like. So we get a bit of scene here, and again we've been in this tent for the end of the previous chapter. So Paul, as we're told, has awakened just before nightfall, and we're inside the sealed and darkened stilltent. As he spoke, so that first line, it says, as he spoke, he heard the vague stirrings of his mother. So that's him talking to himself. Now Harkonnen shall kill Harkonnen. He's getting his thoughts out loud. And as he spoke, there were vague stirrings. It's his mother who's sleeping against the tent's opposite wall. We get a lot of little pieces about equipment within this chapter, by the way. In the previous chapter, at a couple of points, we got a fair old list of stuff that's in the, I think it's at the frame kit, and with to do with the frame tent, etc. And it was literally, I'm just going to have a wee quick look for it here. It was literally just a huge list of gear. We're going to be carrying on that. There's thoughts about that in the previous chapter. If I could just find it here. We had the manual of the friendly desert, didn't we? Let me see. Here we go. Found it. Micro manual. So the seal on the back. So we had all of this language. We had liter johns. We've seen stilltent, energy caps, recast, sand snork, binoculars. We know still suit, repair kit. We talked about the Baradai pistol. One of these ones that's in the back. It's a marker pistol for leaving a large area of dye to mark an area. Sync charts, felt plugs, the para compass, maker hooks, thumpers, frame kit, and a fire pillar, which I'm assuming is possibly like a tinderbox flint and steel kind of thing. Excuse me. Yeah, many things. So all of these tools, etc., and again, the level of sophistication that we're told about these have suggest a lot about the planet, and we're going to get a little bit of that in this chapter. So the first one of these pieces of equipment, again, as we were saying, the proximity detector, handy thing, I suppose, on the floor. Paul's staring at it, and it's a common sort of wee thing that we've had this in the ornithopter, we have it in the tent. It's often that the equipment, the technology, is providing the illumination within these small closed environments, such as the cockpit of the ornithopter, and now we're inside the still tent. The dial's illuminated in the blackness by phosphor tubes. A little bit more piece of equipment there. So we're told it should be night soon, and of course we're on Arrakis, aren't we now? And in this chapter, we're starting to get the realities of living on this planet, really just in bed, and that they're in it now. I suppose they're in a tent that's has been buried in sand on the planet Arrakis due to a storm. And there is something of birth and rebirth in this chapter, immersion. But there's quite a bit, actually, I think, for such a small wee chapter, just in terms of, I suppose, these metaphors, if you like. And I'd argue that there must be a fair amount of the whole Jungian and even Freudian psychology here. So yes, proximity detector, we're assuming, is a device that's going to tell them if somebody's near their tent, especially if they're buried in the sand and can't really sort of see out around them. So it should be night soon, says Jessica. Why don't you lift the tent shades? A little bit of dialogue. And of course, lifting the shades wouldn't help, is what he says. There's been a storm, the tent's covered by sand, and he's going to dig us out soon. In between that, though, we're told Paul realizes that her breathing had been different for some time, that she had lain silent in the darkness until certain that he was awake. And I've just made a wee note that, at this point, in the previous chapter, I'd say that Jessica is terrified of Paul at that point. At this point, she's still fearful of him, and that it's this that she's been, not quite sort of resting in the way that she should. She's wary enough of him, and it's notable in her breathing. Now, so. Again, on we go with the dialogue here. There's no sign of Duncan yet? No. None, says Paul. Again, just a wee reminder that Duncan's about somewhere. What's he at? We don't really know. I think it's easy off to see late, I believe. And we have this little moment, and this is what I was sort of talking about, linking the epigraph at the start of this chapter to the action within it. And Paul rubs the ducal signet ring absently upon his thumb, and it brings out in him a sudden rage against the very substance of this planet, which had helped kill his father, and it sets him trembling. So there's that sudden rage. We've talked before of Paul's impotent rage previously as well, and again this sudden rage of sorry for turning 2 pages at once there we go, of the emperor whenever he hears of Leto's death, but it's not just a rage. It's not he's just really angry. It's such a rage as we had never before seen, really, really angry. Existential rage. It's wrath, isn't it? I think wrath being not necessarily. So, yeah, no sign of Duncan, nothing at all yet. We'll get a little bit more with that. Again, as in this chapter, this short chapter, we'll head to a little bit of a cliffhanger as the action changes. So this sudden rubbing of this ring, this remembrance of it all, I suppose, and we have a kind of how should I put it? Oh, let me just look something up just to check. I was going to. There we go. Let me just have a look. I just want to check I'm using the right phrase. Well, I was going to go with, yeah, it's not that kind of thing, is it? But it's more almost of a. I was thinking about the term I was thinking about was a pathetic fallacy, um, where we attribute human emotions and conduct the things in nature that are not human, essentially. But I think it's more of a case, and it's not quite anthropomorphization, is it? Of the planet is what I'm thinking here. It's against the very substance of this planet. So no, it's not anthropomorphized. I would go possibly a pathetic fallacy that the idea that the planet has helped to kill his father is nonsense. Uh, and in the sense, if we take it on a practical level, um, yeah, it's a bit like we get this thing in this country where Protestants will tell you Northern Ireland is a Protestant country, Catholics will tell you Ireland's a Catholic country. As a country, the geographical landmass of Ireland isn't anything, and it doesn't think. It's not religious, it's not sectarian, it's not bigoted, it doesn't have an opinion. It's a landmass. It's one of those things that gets me a bit. I find it amusing, in a very dark and truly horrible way. But there you go. So it's the sense that this planet has helped kill his father, the very nature of the planet. I suppose the wealth upon it, if we really want to break it down, that's what's done this. And it's the wealth that the melange brings and the power, therefore, that the wealth gives. Ultimately, if you follow the whole economy thing of this universe, ultimately melange equals money. Which therefore does not put melange at the top of the pyramid. Money's at the top of the pyramid. And we'll have a wee chat about that. But in terms of how Paul sees this, the economic system of the Imperium, it's actually money is all encompassing. It's not melange. I'd argue it's the same thing. It's the same today. Excuse me. Right. So yeah, this impotent rage. Sorry, not impotent. He's had this impotent rage before. This is the sudden rage that's come upon him here. The very substance of the planet which had helped kill his father. So it's a little bit irrational, maybe, but it's understandable. And we've left Paul at the previous point where he was sort of grieving. So this is probably a leftover from the grief, I think. And possibly also a realization of his new awareness. Jessica interrupts at this point and says, I heard the storm began. Oh, sorry, I heard the storm begin. And there's something quite funny about this. I don't know, but it makes sense. It's just like just an empty statement, really. Oh, so I heard the storm begin. But it's the undemanding emptiness of her words helped restore some of his calm. The words aren't demanding anything of him, are they? And that's what helps calm him down. Everything almost at this point to Paul seems to be becoming, as he has told us in the previous chapter, some piece of datum, some useful piece of nugget of information to be stored and referenced and catalogued, this kind of thing. So this isn't that. It's just I heard the storm begin. Yeah, it's banal talk, if you know what I mean. And the undemanding emptiness of her words helped restore some of his calm. It's quite possible it's what he needs, and it's quite possible that Jessica knows, as she has demonstrated in the previous chapter, how to calm him down. About the perfect thing to say at that time, as I recall. So his mind focused on the storm as he had seen it begin through the transparent end of their stillsuit. Cold dribbles of sand crossing the basin, then runnels and tails furrowing the sky. And I'm very pleased to tell you this, by the way, but I discovered 2 new words today. And I have a pretty good vocabulary on me, I have to say. But I did not know the word runnel, or if I did, I couldn't remember what it meant. So lo and behold, I got out my dictionary and looked it up. So a runnel is a gutter, a couple of different meanings, or a brook or a rill, as I found in the definition, a small stream of a particular liquid. And then I went, oh, what's a rill? And it's pretty much a small stream. So yeah, runnel, a nice wee word there. For anybody who didn't notice it, I'd like to look things up. But yeah, it's not often I bump into a new word these days, I suppose. Well, yeah, probably quite a few here. So always good to improve one's vocabulary, I think. Right. So yeah, we get a bit of this description here. Cold dribbles of sand crossing the desert. Sorry, crossing the basin, runnels and tails furrowing the sky. Paul had looked up to a rock spire and seen it change shape under the blast, becoming a low cheddar-coloured wedge. Sand funneled into their basin had shadowed the sky with dull curry, and then blotted out all light as the tent was covered. And then we have this little other wee quick section. I'll just read it ahead. Tent boughs had creaked once as they accepted the pressure. Then silence broken only by the dim bellows wheezing out of their sand snorkel, pumping air from the surface. Try the receiver again. No use, said Jessica. So this sort of again gives us a wee bit of a sense of we're back again, a little bit of a time shift back to the point where they're in the tent and the storm begins, and you can almost imagine it in kind of stop motion if you like. But this was described as a spire of let me see, a rock spire. And again, there's I suppose spires and churches and associations with religion, etc. And think of it, just saw it change shape and whittle down into a cheddar coloured wedge. And this is the I suppose wind and sand erosion working at this. As sand funnels into the basin, and we get a bit of a color palette presented for us. One based on food, I suppose, isn't it? We have the cheddar colored wedge of the rock shape as it's whittled down to, and we have a kind of a kind of a wedge shape, and I suppose it evokes yellow cheddary cheese. And the sky that's been shadowed by the sun has become a dull curry. So we can't, I don't know, imagine a nice kind of yellow. And oh, here, let me sort my light out here, folks. There we go. Just realized, thinking about those colors and our new, there we go, paint job. There we are. Let me add a bit of yellow to it. There we go. That's a bit better. In fact, we were always in a bit of a rush tonight, so we're badly organized getting on here, but we like to wing things. Excuse me. There's Joseph Smith, June Van saying, late but have arrived. Thanks for joining us, Joseph. And I suppose this is in terms of what this chapter really does introduce us to. This is getting into immersion with Arrakis. And of course, we're going to start thinking about water and moisture and thirst in particular. And I think there's also quite a few religious associations here, and a whole bunch of stuff to do with birth and rebirth, I think, and renewal, and a little bit of death as well. But yeah, we're not too far in, Joseph, and it's not a particularly big chapter. So thanks for joining us. Let's see. So yeah, the tent bows there creaked once, accepted the pressure, and I've just written under pressure next to this. Dragon in the Sea, 21st Century Sub, etc. Bear with me a wee second to see if the whole point. I'll explain it. Let me see. Right, 21st. Where are we? Got multiple copies of this. There you go. I don't know if this is the one I wrote on, but I've actually got a little bit of an article. A lot of Jungian psychology. Yeah, there's lots of stuff in this. Basically, bear with me a wee second. I found something, and I'm not too sure if it's useful. But in the Dragon in the Sea, the men it's this very small submarine, 4-man, I think. It's I suppose it's another hermetically sealed environment, if you like, and it's one where they go through a kind of a birth canal. As submariners in their submarine from one environment into another, and in a sense, I suppose it's into an environment that's lethal. So the whole and very much. Let me see what I'm trying to think of here. Bear with me a wee second, just to run down here. Hang on, I'll make this a bit bigger on the screen. I suppose I better make the words a bit bigger. It's very hard to see. Right. Now, let me see. Herbert was in the Navy briefly, and he was injured and got I suppose what would you call it, a medical discharge or an honourable discharge, I think. Um, let me see. Being prepared with a remarkable knowledge of the workings of submarines, together with the adaptations on behalf of the submariners to survive in the deep, is essentially what is a self-contained ecosystem that brought into existence his first novel. In addition to his experiences in the Navy, Herbert's work would be greatly influenced by two key elements: Jungian psychology and religion, the latter being more obvious in the Dune novels. In Under Pressure, however, presented with a novel which in every sense is a psychological thriller, and the presence of Jungian psychology is obvious in its influence on Frank Herbert. That's to do with the Slatteries. Now, bear with me a wee second. Yeah, this is just something it's not completed properly, but it's something I found from my own work from a long time ago that I never finished, but I'm just with some fragments. Let's see. Right. So yeah, some of this equipment that's in the tent here, I suppose. There's a device in this book called an emotional telemeter. That's to do with the something like similar to the Navy's vampire gauge. I must explain this better at some point. We'll have a wee chat about this book in itself, I think. Also, by the way, there's also a traitor inside the submarine, just like Dr. Yui. There's an awful lot. I've described Under Pressure as certain sections of it, or no pun intended, but a dry run for Dune. And if literally you're swapping the water for the sand here. Interestingly enough, there's some very interesting things in this about what Herbert thinks of jihads and stuff in this article here that I was writing. It's Captain Sparrow, isn't it, as well? Yeah, sorry, I can't quite see it here. I'll have a read. I've only just found this tonight and didn't get time to look through it. But what I'm after, I think, is in here. And it is all to do with the birth of the submariners coming, and it's a very similar scene. Oh, here we go. It talks about it's be as though I would die on utero. He said, speaking the thought softly to himself, never born at all. No, sorry. I'm not the right sort of time for me to have a wee look through this. I'd have to read this in depth, and I think it is in here somewhere. Men should get one last look at the stars before they go into the sea. Yeah, there's something to do with dracones and stuff. It's right. Sorry, folks. That's just appalling of me. I have to say, I'm very sorry about that. Sitting trying to read something here when I'm meant to be doing this. I can read usually speed read quite well with something like that, but the font's all terrible and I can't read it properly. So I'll just get on with it, and I'll tell you what. I'll see if I can dig that up for next time. But it is simply put, the four-man crew of this submarine go into a kind of section, if you like, an underground, and then they go into a kind of, and they go through sphincters, if you like, which we're going to see in this tent here. And because they enter it kind of as a rebirth for them, and it's presented in that way, and it's presented in a Jungian way, and it mirrors heavily as we see them, the action tent, as they leave the tent, this kind of thing. Anyway, let's head on with it. So the tent bow's creaking. It's kind of that. And as I said, there's a lot of this in this chapter. I think, it's almost he's taken elements of the Dragon in the Sea, Under Pressure, rewritten them for Dune, and I think this one of them's here, and especially the bow creaking in the tent here. That pressure really just makes me think of that book. And if anybody's not read it, by the way, and you're Frank Herbert fans, check it out. It's I'd say, after what's in the Dune series, I'd say Under Pressure, The Dragon in the Sea is his best novel. I really like it. Most of Frank's other stuff I'm a bit, to be honest with you, but not that book. There's a lovely cover on this one. I like. It's quite an old one. But yeah, absolutely. I've read it about 3 or 4 times. Really good and very, very tense. No chapters. And really does work very well to build pressure. But an awful lot of similarities, both in plot and nature of characters, etc., etc. Definitely worth a read, though. So again, we get a bit of this banal kind of banter, if you like. Just you try, you just. Oh, how was it put? Undemanding empty words, if you like. Try the receiver again. No use. So Paul has a wee drink here from his still suit water tube. And we go, okay, so they're still suited up, etc. And we're going to get a little bit of this here. He draws a warm swallow into his mouth, and his thought here is, at this point, taking the water here. Here I truly begin my Arakeen existence. Living on reclaimed moisture from one's own breath and body, the water's flat and tasteless, but it soothed his throat. And of course, we're going to see sort of Paul taking water, but Jessica not taking water here. She's not ready. And I have truly begun my Arakeen existence. Truly begun that existence. Truly, it's a point of beginning. But it's also, I suppose, if we take we'll have a wee, we get this right away, don't we? Jessica's sort of looking at Paul. Here's Paul drinking, and she can feel the slickness of her still suit clinging to her body, but she refuses to accept her thirst. And we're told why. So in that sense, Paul, just before we go on with Jessica here, in what we were talking about, Paul taking that drink, here I have truly begun my Arakeen existence, but it also means he's accepted it. If you see what I mean. So, and this is why. So she won't drink. She refused to accept her thirst. No, to accept it would require, and here it is, awakening fully to the terrible necessities of Arrakis. This is a place where you must guard even the most fractional traces of moisture. Where we hoard a few drops. Sorry, I'm just getting off my notes here. Probably better to read this, actually. It's quite important, I think. Let's just read it properly. Jessica heard Paul drinking, felt the slickness of her own still suit clinging to her body, but she refused to accept her thirst. To accept it would require awakening fully into the terrible necessities of Arrakis, where they must guard even fractional traces of moisture, hoarding the few drops in the tent's catch pockets, begrudging a breath wasted on the open air. And it just followed with, so much easier to drift back down into sleep, isn't it, than to think of all of these terrible necessities. And interestingly, we talked about the sort of pathetic fallacy there of the planet. I'm going to go with that, though it's not quite bang on, I think. But of the planet Arrakis and its role in helping to kill Duke Leto. And we're starting to, and I think this is important here because it's interesting here to think of the planet Arrakis as a character in this book. And I think it is important to think of the planet as a character. It's the planet's qualities, and to a degree, even its, what makes it unique, its own personality, if we like, that's fundamental to the story. It's Arrakis that really does stick out in the minds of the reader, I think, and it's a place that's full of evoked smells and sounds, and there is, but I think particularly that I've always got that, reading the Arabian Nights, to be honest with you, the Tales of the Thousand Night and One Night, the way, I don't know, the way it's written, I suppose, it evokes the culture, the smells, particularly, it's almost what I'd say about the Tales of the Thousand One Nights the Tales of the Thousand Night and One Night is it's a mouth-watering book when it comes to food. It's the descriptions of food, smells, sounds, the pastries, and particularly pastries and sweets, are incredible. But they're enough. It's such a wonderfully written thing. Depends on what translation you've got, but really just again the sense of hot country, sands, desert, palm trees, oases, and all these sweets and fancies and spices and herbs. For someone who's never been to that part of the world, grew up on Tales of the Arabian Nights, and again, Dune would kind of fit the atmosphere of Dune's. Has that if Dune was a bit more full on with its cakes and buns, I think Dune has that kind of feel, and it's a pity because I'd love to get out to that part of the world and go exploring. Just love to hit even a. I'd love to go to a spice market just for the colors and the smells, But it's something I love about the Arabian Nights. It's something I like about books like Dune. That sort of sensory assault, if you like. But in particular, I suppose it comes out best in Dune, probably in the banquet scene where you get all these all the different courses, etc., at the table. I had said that I would look up if I had a menu, by the way, from Carrickfergus Castle, and sadly I don't. But I'll make a point of popping in Monday. The next, not that I'm up that way, but the next time I go to Carrickfergus Castle, I will pop into it, pay me $5 or whatever, and I will pick you up a copy at some point of a medieval menu. Which wouldn't look too out of place within Dune. And I was just wondering, I had put the book aside somewhere, but not that we'll have a wee look at it, but it was something as a proper medieval menu. That's one of the things that they I think it's just like a wee sheet you can take it with you. It's just a sort of thing for the kids, if you know what I mean. But it's real, knowledge of real menus like that. But it's the smells and the sounds, etc. There we go. Sorry, running on a bit. Let me just find out where we're at. So yeah. Oh yeah. Where are we? So Jessica hasn't drunk yet, and so easier to drift back down into sleep. And we get Jessica's dream. So she's had a sleep. Again, jumps back in time a bit. This is the sleep during the day. Again, reminding us that they're undercover during the day and should be traveling, sleeping and should be traveling at night. It's too hot out there. So there had been a dream in this day's sleep, and she shivered at the memory of it. She had held dreaming hands beneath sandflow, where a name had been written. Duke Leto Atreides. The name had blurred with the sand, and she had moved to restore it. But the first letter filled before the last was begun. So you can imagine her seeing the name in the sand, brushing it away, and her trying to fill in the letter. But by the time she gets to the last one, the first one's away again. Just something that's not going to happen. The sand would not stop. It's like one of those recurring, perpetual nightmare type dreams. And so the dream becomes a wailing. And I suppose if we think about the sounds that we've heard previously, we've had mewling quite a lot. We have wailing here. Her dream became wailing, louder and louder. That ridiculous wailing. Part of her mind had realized the sound was her own voice. As a tiny child, little more than a baby, a woman not quite visible to memory was going away. So this is kind of important. This woman that's going away. Let's hear Jessica's thoughts on it, and I'll give you mine afterwards. My unknown mother. Ping. Right. Okay. Jessica thought. The Bene Gesserit who bore me and gave me to the sisters, because that's what she was commanded to do. Was she glad to rid herself of a Harkonnen child? Now, Paul's going to interrupt this with a thought and I suppose a sentence, but here we go. The unknown mother. One of our mysteries of Dune. The Bene Gesserit who bore me, she gave me to the sisters. A gift implies property. So even at this age, she's property. She's been given as a gift, which is quite horrific, I think. Even though, the reason because the Bene Gesserit who did so was commanded to do so by the Bene Gesserit sisterhood. So if we think about it in that terms, we talk about loyalties of the Bene Gesserit, whoever Jessica's mother is, and the I suppose, well, just for the sake of it, it's a mystery within Dune, the Dune series, within the extended universe, as we'll call it, of Kevin J. Anderson and Brian Herbert. The answer is provided that it's the Reverend Mother Gaius Helen Boheim. That answer is totally logical and makes complete sense. But yeah, give away your child. Okay, and there's all sorts to do with how that, isn't it? How Gaius Helen Boheim goes about getting pregnant from the young Baron. I think that's one of the books I've read, actually. If it's one of the House Carino, House Atreides, House Harkonnen, that trilogy. Oh, for trilogies of trilogies. Was she glad to get rid of herself? Was she glad to rid herself of a Harkonnen child? Is the question that Jessica asks here in her mind. And I just wanted to stop right there and go, well, for me, hang on. If I was Jessica right there, she also, previous chapter, she did not know who her father was, and she now knows because Paul has told her. So here's my question. If I was Jessica right now, I would have a question for Paul, and here it is. Do you know who my mother is? Or do you know who my Bene Gesserit mother was? Or I know my father, but not my mother, thanks to you. Could you fill in the gap? I would be just in the immediacy of the thought and the fact that this knowledge that Paul has provided her in the previous chapter. Yeah, your dad's the Baron. Okay. I wonder who my mom is. And this thought focusing on her, what seems to be an earliest memory of her mother giving her away. It might not be her mother, by the way. It's a woman not quite visible to memory. But it's my unknown mother, she thought. So she's pretty certain of that. You okay, big love? That's all right. Hey, excuse me a second. Okay. There you go. That's a girl. We have 2 out of 3 dogs up here tonight, I suppose. I wonder where Noodles is at. She's about somewhere. So I just thought it was a logical question. And Joseph Smith says, I like what Anderson and Brian Herbert did with the Harkonnen story. As I recall, I thought it was quite good, that bit. If I'm remembering rightly, it's the whole thing amounts to. You'll have to. I've only read these once, Joseph, so you can maybe correct me. I don't want to spoil it particularly for anything. But what I seem to remember is it's all to do with how does Gaius Helen Boheim get pregnant by the Baron, who's a homosexual paedophile and has no sexual interest in women. And it's a rape, isn't it? But it's a manipulated rape, and the whole thing, if I can recall correctly, is an entire manipulation by Gaius Helen Boheim, who doesn't give a monkey's how she gets his seed. The absolute objective is to get that seed no matter what. So in terms of what they did right with that, if I'm remembering correctly, it was, yeah, I would have read them. That was a good while back, but I kind of did enjoy that. It's, I suppose, working with established characters and answering. I wonder how that happened, because if it is Gaius Helen Boheim and the Baron, and we're told that the Baron was allowed himself, isn't it? We talked about the use of that word. When a lot of people, particular powers in Dune, either allow themselves certain things or force themselves to do something, if you like. And it's quite interesting whenever people talk about use those terms within Dune, I think. So we have it. Yeah, it's just one of those things. And at no point did Paul decide to blurt who the mother is or anything like that. It's like one of those. I don't know if anybody knows the Raymond Smullyan and his logic problems. And I use these to teach some of my younger kids who are doing transfer tests and stuff like that. So you get a thing like there's a big person and a little person sitting on a log. The little person is the son of the big person, but the big person is not their father. Who are they? This kind of thing. Oh, thanks, Joseph. Yeah, I've pretty much. I remember my old, as I keep saying to you guys, my old memory is not that bad. And I didn't find the books horrific, and I kind of enjoyed them. My biggest because it was nice to return to the Dune universe after all that time. I've always said I've no problem with the books and such, but I don't like books that go on and on and on and on, trilogies of trilogies and all. And it's become a bit of a joke. But I thought they were quite good. I thought, they're as kind of prologues, I suppose. Yeah. Yeah, so awful we had to do it twice. Eek. Is that the Baron and Gaius Helmo? Joseph, very good. So yeah, it's a wee bit of a sidetrack there, folks. But the whole unknown mother thing, it can be answered and sorted here very quickly. And it's just in terms of, we talk about our mysteries within Dune. We've got 5 more books to go after this one. It's not going to be answered by Frank Herbert. I often say that how Gaius Helen Mohim behaves to Paul and Jessica at the start of the book is a strong indicator that and it's because of they're also make up a trinity. If you like, mother, maiden, crone kind of thing, where Paul kind of has that dual aspect to him of both male and female, and the youth, the mother, and the crone, if you like. So because she's in the room with those 3 at that point within the archetypes, all of these things point heavily that Gaius Helen Mohim is Paul's grandmother, I think. So even though it is a mystery within the Dune series by Frank Herbert, it's not a mystery within the extended universe by Kevin J. Anderson and Brian Herbert. So there we go. But yeah, it's an interesting one. And the mysteries, I think, some of them were not. You hear a wee bit mystery, left it, leaves it, that kind of thing. Frank's quite good at doing that. Some of it's, you'd be surprised sometimes where he comes in and answers things. And we were was it Chaya was asking me about, we're talking about getting all the properties for Melange, how we're keeping these notes as we go and we can accumulate them. And I was actually thinking about just some of the things that you can go through the books and find as you go, but there is stuff that runs through all 6 books. So to get the complete properties of Melange, you'll have to read all 6, because Melange evolves into but it's little pieces. It's the same with the worm. If you want to get the life cycle of the worm, it's in the books. And I have done this, and I said I've got a wee chart on the community section of our YouTube channel. So it's all been mapped for you. It's one of those kind of a picture speaks 1,000 words kind of thing. But we literally went through the book and lifted every single instance of the worms in relation to everything they did to create their life cycle. You can do that with different things in Dune, but some of the little mysteries that you're following, and they'll pop up here and there, will just vanish, and you'll never know. Part of the book's joy. So it's something that Chaya was saying about that. It's got me thinking, actually, Chaya, rather than what's the point of me creating a set of notes and reading it to you? The properties of Melange, I think, would make a very good video for the station. And we're going through our A to Z at the minute. So we've hit C, and I'm trying to think about what to do for C. And I'm probably going to go with Arthur C. Clarke, The Culture, and Captain Kremen, The Women Conflict, as to whether to put Captain Kremen under C or K. But I think we'll go with C. Maybe K, actually, because it's Kenny Everett. I don't know. But D, we've promised a video on science fiction drugs at some point, and it's good to, often it's a bit like doing the thing on Tiger. You've got a science fiction book or an idea or something, but there's plenty of things around it. So I think we're going to have a wee look whenever we get down a few after our next video or two, guys. We think we'll do for the station an examination of science fiction drugs, and I thought what we'd do is build it around Melange. And there are an awful lot of these things within science fiction, but I think Melange and Vril are 2 of the most interesting drugs in there. I think they're very similar. So there you go, just a few wee thoughts on that. Cynthia says Anya will come to know everything about her mother all too early. Compared to that, a mystery about one's mother would be a relief. Yeah, this all sort of poor Alia, yeah. Compared to that, a mystery about what would be a really absolutely a little bit of a mystery compared to none at all in relation to your mother. Yeah, I think Ali is a good character to lock on to, by the way, in terms of if anybody's into doing character studies and this kind of thing, to follow Ali, we get to follow her from birth to death. We don't get to see the early life of Paul Atreides, for example. He's 15 when we meet him. So yeah, just and would she be glad to rid herself of a Harkonnen child? And it would, I don't know. The interesting thing about that, yeah, we're going to get to this in a little minute, but pardon me. It's highly suggested that Jessica hates the Harkonnens too. Would she be? Because there has to be contempt here. Otherwise, why bring it up in her mind? Would she be glad to rid herself of a Harkonnen child? And it's to do with Leto. Leto and his feelings and thoughts. And in The Dragon in the Sea, very quickly, while I remember this, I'll tell you this. The captain of the vessel, even though his men have different religions and things like this, they slowly start to think like him when in the submarine. And it's a bit like House Atreides and everybody around thinking like Leto. Hate the Harkonnens. And Leto gathers around him people who hate the Harkonnens. This is how his household is made up. People with mutual hatred. Skills, granted, but the strongest desire to kill Harkonnens, because that's what Leto hates and that's what Leto likes. And just put that there's I think that's is it a conscious or unconscious bias within Jessica's thoughts here, but Frank's going to actually tell us in a wee second. Excuse me. So, as much as that raises quite a little bit here, Paul's thoughts, and again, Paul's just not really on. We're not on the same. The mother and son aren't on the same page here at all. The place to hit them is in the space. Again, military. He's a 15. He's calculating. Where do I hit them in the space? How can he think of an attack at a time like this? And of course, that takes us back to our Gurney's mood quotation, isn't it? How can he think of one? Well, it's because he's not in the he's not in the mood for grieving and doing all of this thing. He's got that done, hasn't he? He's in the mood for sorting stuff out, but he's angry. Calm down a bit. His response, or sorry, her response. How can he think of an attack at a time like this? Jessica's response is this: an entire planet full of spice. She said, "How can you hit them there?" And she heard him stirring, the sound of their pack being dragged across the tent floor. So here we go. Desert power. This is how. So it's and the question, by the way, is very good, and we should pay attention to it. How can you hit them in an entire planet of space? And ultimately, if we know Paul's strategy to threaten to destroy the space, I think the only way to do that would be to destroy the entire planet. So I think ultimately Paul's threat, I don't know, and put it this way: as long as worms survive, there will be space. So to destroy the existing, the space. Oh well, we'll get to that ultimately, I suppose. But I just think it's to hit them is in the space. This is the beginning of that plan. He who controls the space, all of this. He who can destroy a thing controls a thing. Mindless philosophy. Somebody points out, isn't it? I think. So, desert power. That's what we need here. On Iraq, and we get a comparison. On Caladan, desert power is sea and air power. Here in Arrakis, it's desert power. We've heard this in, we've heard it in Operation Desert Storm, haven't we? Was it for the first Gulf War? And it makes you ask the question, what is power? On Caladan, we have sea and air power, and power is such a wonderfully euphemistic word here, isn't it? It's almost ubiquitous. What does that mean? Does it mean we have the ability to control things on sea and air? We have the ability to kill things on in the sea and the air is really what it means, actually. We can enforce and police and control. On Arrakis, it's desert power. In other words, well, there's no sea here, and the air. I'd say air power is quite important in Arrakis, to be honest with you. But ultimately, desert power. Ultimately, it's land and it's the terrain. And the Fremen are the key. Here we go. So once again, if the Fremen are the key, that's simply put because they are the right people to be exploited here. Fremen. His voice came from the vicinity of the tense sphincter. Her Bene Gesserit training sensed in his tone an unresolved bitterness towards her. So he's still not altogether happy with Jessica. And here we go. This is what we were talking about just a second ago. All his life, he's been trained to hate the Harkonnens. Whose fault is that? Now he is one. So it's really it just amounts to this has created a massive problem of self-loathing, if you like. Because of me, how little he knows me. Let me just have a wee look at this again. Sorry, just to read it properly. So all his life he's been trained to hate Harkonnen, she thought. Now he finds he is Harkonnen because of me. Because she gave birth to him. How little he knows me. I was my Duke's only woman. I accepted his life and his values, even to defying my Bene Gesserit orders. I'd argue that hating Harkonnens is one of Leto's values. But we also had a wee chat about, does Jessica, as much as we talk about her allegiances to the Bene Gesserit, absolute admission to defying my Bene Gesserit orders. She defied the orders, unlike her unknown mother, who gave her up because that's what she was commanded to do. So Paul's partly why Paul is the way he is because he's been brought up to hate Harkonnens. Hatred, a built-in intrinsic honest to God hatred. And if you understand Paul, probably at that point in his life, he's probably never met a Harkonnen ever before leaving Caladan, but he has utter hatred of them. It's a thing that's well ingrained in my own society. So I keep calling it my society. I don't know why, but simply put, Catholics are brought up to hate Protestants in this country, and Protestants are brought up to hate Catholics. And it is hatred. It's generational. It's quite disgusting. And it still goes on today, and it's entirely the church's fault as they get into the primary schools, and it all begins with little donkey, if you know what I mean, and ends up with some guy being nailed to a cross for saying how nice it would be to be nice to people for a change. Oh dear, that's a wee bit of a hitchhiker's guide there, folks. Jessica, there's Chaya saying, Jessica has the Atreides bias against Harkonnen, but the Bene Gesserit only care about genes, not feuds. So why? I suppose why bring your son up to believe that? I suppose, and as much as some of that's got, as much as half of Paul is the father, and that was made clear to us previously, wasn't it? As much as it is her. If a parent brought a child up to hate at that, the way this kind of hatred works, I'd almost call it a form of abuse, to be honest. Hit them in the spice. That'd make a great euphemism. It's going to make some real cognitive dissonance. Cognitive dissonance. It's you could stamp it on everybody's forehead over here with a P or a C, I think. Cognitive dissonance, people, if anybody's not too sure, the term cognition is what you see and recognize, if you like. No, but it's cognitive dissonance is when you kind of basically prove something to someone and it doesn't matter. They will disconnect and just won't accept because it goes so fundamentally against the core of what they believe. And unfortunately, in this country, the belief in it, and there's a reason why Northern Ireland does terrorism so well, is it's because the church does terror, and that's where they learned it. And the British government, the Irish are as much the way they are because of the British, because in many ways, they, I suppose, had to behave like them in some ways. So it's quite appalling. It's a bit what we talked about the introduction the other week was it Ken MacLeod's introduction to Ursula K. Le Guin's The Word for World is Forest, and we were just discussing about how what the war in Ukraine, what the Russians are doing, but how it will change the Ukrainian people. Obviously, I mean, whenever this nonsense ends, what it'll do to their personalities, their character. They'll come out of it tough, better, and it will affect them for generations and generations. And hatreds will emerge if they have. How could you not hate what's happening to you? Something actually I was thinking about doing, folks. To be honest, is maybe doing a wee sci-fi Saturday or Friday, where I really wanted to just point out all of the warnings that Frank had provided. And he's got a couple, by the way, that people haven't listened to in light of, and they're quite old. But yeah, the world's in a bit of a state, and one of the big warnings of Dune, and if you look at our PhD videos, you'll see way back in 2006, we're looking at Russian gas pipelines when I was doing this work, and we're talking about hydraulic despotism, and these are the examples that I gave, and that's what you're seeing right now. Also known as Oriental despotism, which is one of the major factors of Dune as an ecological book, if you like. So the Fremen are the key. Jessica's thoughts. He's been trained, and I just how little he knows me, by the way. And I've just written, well, that's kind of true, isn't it, of all parents and their children? That as our children grow up, or as we grow up as children, we know our parents of a certain way, and it's not until we really hit adulthood that we can get a chance, to know our parents or know our as equals as adults. And so there are many things that our children don't know about us. There are many things that we don't know about our parents simply by the fact that they were alive on the world when we weren't, if you know what I mean. So a little bit more to this, I think, but I just thought it's how little he knows me. Quite correct, But well, sorry, actually, hang on. This is Paul Atreides. Maybe he knows a lot more than we think. I was followed by this little thing, I suppose. How little he knows me. There's an exclamation at that. It's almost a shout in her head. There's a sense of almost thinking, I was my Duke's only woman. I accepted his life and his values, even to defying my Bene Gesserit orders. I was my Duke's only woman, and I've actually put brackets. Really? Question mark. And I don't believe that for 1 minute. I believe that she probably was his only woman from the point of becoming his ducal companion, if you like. But I would say that tales of royalty sowing their wild oats and all of this kind of nonsense are well known, and I'm sure that if anything untoward would have happened, possibly with young Leto, that either I don't know, but I don't get the sense that that's true. And I don't get the sense that it's very real either. And if that is the case, then Leto's had a very sheltered life, hasn't he? Dear, oh dear. So even to and really love, but accepted his love, his values. She accepted his values. His values were to hate Harkonnens. And again, this must be quite hard for Jessica as well here. Again, the thing that, I mean, it's interesting. I suppose if we think about it this way, guys, what if Leto was still alive and this came out in the room? If we put Leto, Paul, and Jessica, it's a good thought experiment, isn't it? What if Leto's standing in the room with Paul? What if Paul standing in the room with his father and his mother told his mother right there in front of Leto that the Baron Harkonnen is her father? How would Leto respond? And that his son is how it's a really interesting question. It's one of the reasons I think we need Leto out of the way. He would go mental, I think. I don't think he would handle it at all. I don't know. It would certainly be a life-changing moment for him, I think. But I just don't know how Leto would have reacted to that. And I think it's an interesting one. And of course, we don't get full disclosure from Paul. Quick chat about, you know, Jessica's father, or Harkonnens, etc., but nothing about the mother. And of course, we do have that little shift within the text where Herbert's doing that little bit of thinking through Jessica's thoughts, that the mother does appear here at this point whenever things are mentioned. So father and mother are mentioned within a couple of chapters, but there's no resolution to it, and it is, it's from a writer's point of view. Just before we go on, it is good to give your reader a mystery, and it's as much, and as long as you answer most of them, But it is good to have. We talk about books that are that make you think after you're finished them. Little things that I wonder what would have happened. I wonder what might have been. I wonder what. That was never resolved. You end up kind of looking things up to see, did I miss it or something? But it is good to have a few wee mysteries to let your readers speculate and wonder. Gives a bit of mystery. So once again, we're inside. As we're still inside this. Let me just find where we're at. So we're still in the tent. Of course, the tent's glow tab came alight under Paul's hand. Filled the domed area with green radiance, and again we've mentioned this, that the closed environments illuminated by technology, and we have of course the ornithopter's cockpit and this stilltent. So it almost seems, by the way, that Paul, if you look at this chapter, has been inching so slowly towards the sphincter. If you see it, I mean, it's constantly, we're getting the back and forth between them. But at this point, he's crouched at the sphincter. It's all of his loci, are to do with the sphincter in the tent. So Paul crouched at the sphincter, and we're told how he's, again, with the still suit. His still suit hood is set for the open desert. His forehead is capped. His mouth filters in place. His nose filters adjusted, and only his dark eyes are visible. It's the narrow band of face that turns once to her and then away. And he tells her, secure yourself for the open. And his voice comes across as blurred because of the filter. So basically, this is our moment of birth, if you like. Jessica quickly gets her filter across her mouth, adjusts her hood, watches Paul break the seal at the tent. So I'll just sort of put birth, rebirth, death, and renewal. And I want you guys to think about this, by the way. If we think about giving birth here, who's giving birth? How many people are born in that sense, or reborn? Then if we think about the plans within plans within plans, we kind of have a birth within a birth within a sort of birth, if you like. That repetition. We have Paul, who's going to emerge out of this tent in a second, reborn as Muad'Dib. Jessica's inside the tent, if you see what I mean, and it's almost that what he's come out of, the mother's still there, so it's almost a rebirth from his mother and a rebirth for himself into Arrakis, a rebirth as not just Paul Atreides but as Muad'Dib, this Mentat Duke. And of course we have Jessica within all of those births and rebirths and renewals and deaths. We're thinking about death and renewal. Jessica is actually pregnant inside as well, and in relation to this tunnel. So what we have to understand is it's about happening. We're going to get this explained. Is that they're in a they're in a kind of domed. Perfect, right? They're in a kind of domed tent. There we go. Bob's your uncle. Setting up on, and this whole base. They're in a basin, and this desert has all come in and blown in and completely covered them. And they're going to have a little tunnel that they go through, essentially, and that's essentially that birthing canal, if you like, that we talked about. Oh, my Judge Dredd badge has come off that. There we go. Quite a nice wee thing, this, isn't it? Where does the there we go. Keep a wee Judge Dredd badge on there for some reason. That's my wife's wee thing. It's lovely. I'm not even sure what it is. Is it meant to be like some sort of yurt or something? Oh, it's in from the Tumor art group. The rest of it's in Cyrillic. Can't read. It's like Russian. Oh dear. That looks a bit. Right. So this is the moment here, really. San rasped as he opened the sphincter, and a bird, I quite like the language here, a bird fizzle of grains ran into the tent before he could immobilize it with a static compaction tool. Mm. And I get just the bird fizzle, there's a wee sense of automatopoeia. I thought that kind of maybe that would be like the noise that this compaction tool would make in packing down the sand. So a hole grew in the sand wall as the tool realigned the grains. Wow, okay, that sounds pretty impressive. He slipped out, and her ears followed his progress to the surface. And here we go. What will he find? What will we find out there? We've also, just before we go any further, just that we're seeing one of these tools that we're told about in use, the static compaction tool. What will he find out there? She wondered. Harkonnen troops and the Sardaukar, those are the dangers we can expect, but what of the dangers we don't know? And she thought of the compaction tool and the other strange instruments in the pack. Each of these tools suddenly stood in her mind as a sign of mysterious dangers. There we go. Now, let's have a wee look. So yeah, every single tool in this pack has a purpose. And we must think that this pack is like it's a survival pack, isn't it? Pretty much. And you wouldn't have all of these bits of gear in a survival pack unless you needed them. Absolutely. And they all seem to have very particular special applications. The dangers we don't know. Harkonnen troops and Sardaukar troops, that's what we do know is out there. We can expect that. But what do we not know? And these little tools are an indication. And as we go, we're going to see, as I said, we think about the character of the planet as a character, various dangers of the planet. We're going to start learning an awful lot about Arrakis itself here, how to survive on this planet. And yeah, these little instruments are a big indicator, sign of mysterious dangers. And that's what we want, mystery, isn't it, in our stories? A little bit of mystery, a little bit of danger, a little bit of excitement. And we get all this from a small tool bag. Excellent. So Jessica feels a bit of a hot breeze. Let's see. Hot breeze from surface sand touch her cheeks where they're exposed by the filter. I've made a wee note that this is a recurring thing here. So she's going to have cheeks, she's going to have hands, she's going to have feet, all of sort of graced by the sand, if you like. And this is the cheeks that are exposed above the filter. This is maybe a bit of still suit discipline, possibly it's not quite spot on here. So Paul tells her to pass up the pack in a voice that's low and guarded, and she obeys. We're here to serve, aren't we? Let me see. She moved to obey, heard the water leader John's gurgle as she shoved the pack across the floor. She peered upwards, saw Paul framed against the stars. And I've kind of just gone with a bit of like a crown here. And if you think about it, it's a bit of a messianic image, isn't it? There's her son. She's looking up at him. And there he is, with all these stars around him, etc. A little bit messianic, but that's what we're going to get in Dune. Actually, there's a lot of messianism, isn't it? Let's see. So at this point, and if we think about it, it's the absence of him here, if I'm not mistaken. Let me see. Here he said, reached down, pulled the pack to the surface. So the pack comes up, and now she saw only the circle of stars. So where he'd been there and the stars, he's dragging the pack up. He's not in the same point of view. Now she sees this circle of stars like a crown, now, is the way I've looked at it. If it's a circle. And so if we think about Paul being illuminated, in that sense, by these stars, very sort of, gives a sense of a religious icon, if you like. We've given this little simile here. Oh no, hang on. Jumping ahead of myself, am I? Yeah, Paul pulls the pack to the surface, and let's see. This little simile, number 28. The stars. Now she saw only the circle of stars. They were like the illuminating tips of weapons aimed down at her. A shower of meteors crossed her patch of night. Excuse me. Pardon me. The meteors seemed to her like a warning, like tiger stripes, like luminous grave slats clabbering her blood, and she felt the chill of the price on her heads. Tiger stripes. Yeah, I go to Tiger every time, don't I? Again, that chill. We're always that association of chills, coldness. We're told about this shower of meteors that's kind of also going to. It's a little bit of a connection, and again, we get these recurring motifs within Dune. But in the previous chapter 21's epigraph began, there is a legend that the instant the Duke Leto Atreides died, a meteor streaked across the skies above his ancestral palace on Caladan. So we have that little connection, meteors. Shower of them this time. Paul tells her to hurry up. He wants to collapse the tent. And again, at this point, we have the sand touching her hand. A shower of sand from the surface brushed her left hand. How much sand will the hand hold? She asked herself. Interesting question, isn't it? Very metaphysical. Shall I help you? Paul asked. No. So a flat no, I don't want help. And again, she swallows in this dry throat. She still hasn't taken a drink of water. And she slips into the hole, feels the static packed sand rasp under her hands. Paul reaches down, took her arm. And then very, very, I don't know, this is kind of a jarring almost. She stood beside him on a smooth patch of starlit desert. So can I help you? No. And he helps her. And he reaches down, takes her arm, and suddenly she's just there. So he stood beside him on a smooth patch of starlit desert, stared around. Sand almost brimmed their basin, leaving only a dim lip of surrounding rock. She probed the farthest darkness with her trained senses. So, in sense of where they've been camping and how, we're getting a little bit of a sense of the lethality of the desert, that they've been in a basin that's almost entirely been covered. Excuse me. So yeah, and we've also seen this rock spire that's been whittled down just to a little cheese wedge, I suppose. And again, the colors of Arrakis there, the surface really being quite yellow with that cheese wedge. If you go with that, was it the stained curry? I'm going with curry, could be any color as far as I'm concerned. There's quite a spectrum of curry colors, from bright reds to yellows to browns, all sorts of things. So I think a curry color is a bit weak, I suppose. But we're out on the surface. I just wanted also to point out the births of Paul, etc. Just in terms of gods and things like this, this is almost like a chthonic emergence, if you like. That chthonic deities are related to the earth and to being in the earth in particular. And of course, Shai Hulud, that the Fremen worship is a chthonic deity. So the Paul is going to become like a god almost to the Fremen. He's the Messiah, the prophet of it. Of course, he'll be relegated from any kind of, I suppose, true divine powers, a bit the way Leto is whenever Leto II comes along. But yeah, so just jumping back, I just thought there was very much that reminds me of chthonic stories. What's the one, I suppose, a really good example of? There's two actually that have a lot in common, and one is Heracles and Antaeus, and the other one is Theseus and what's his name? Syrinx, is it? Syrinx. Oh, hang on. Theseus, come here. All right, I actually have a picture of this. Oddly enough, this myth is the Sinus. It's Theseus and Sinus. There we go. On the cover of Apollodorus is the Library of Greek Mythology. Just to let you know, both, and it's to do. Oh goodness, I've buried myself in nonsense here, haven't I? Right, Heracles meets this guy on his way to do the 13th. Well, it's the extra labor, if you like, which is to retrieve an apple from the garden of the Hesperides, if I'm not mistaken. This guy's a highway robber, and he's a son of a chthonic. He's a son of the earth. If you see what I mean, he's a son of a chthonic deity. Here, we should look him up, shouldn't we? Quickly here, let's see. So he's basically a highway robber, and this is Theseus and Sinus, and sorry, Heracles and Antaeus is the one we're talking about. It's almost the same identical story with Theseus and Sinus. Sinus, I'm probably not pronouncing his name. Tied to a tree. So they're both chthonic deities, and the stories of Theseus kind of overlay the ones of Heracles later, as much as the Athenians, for example, up until a point, would revere Heracles as what a guy, he's amazing, he's the best ideal of our society, that kind of thing, as in terms of what it means to be a man and all of this nonsense. And in fact, later on, Theseus, he's a guy that thinks, and we prefer thinkers to fighters, if you like. So there's a cultural shift in how the Greeks look at Heracles and later on Theseus. Both men have a similar kind of myth, and it's to do with these highway robbers who are chthonic minor deities, if you like. Hercules and Antaeus. Sorry, I'll say Heracles and Antaeus. If anybody's interested in poetry or Seamus Heaney, the Heracles and Antaeus myth is one that Seamus Heaney uses to identify the Northern Irish people, and it's to do with being in the gutter, in the mud, and looking up at the stars but never reaching from them. It's if you ever leave the earth, you're doomed. You belong in the dirt, if you see what I mean. And it's actually a comment about the Northern Irish people. Simply put, as long as these guys are unbeatable, as long as their feet touch the earth, if you see what I mean. How Heracles defeats Antaeus is by wrestling and lifting him up off the ground, and then he can strangle him. So they're both men who challenge people to contests of strength on the road, rob those people and kill them because they're basically unbeatable as long as their feet touch the earth. So sorry, it just popped. Had a wee quick side thing there in relation to those are examples of chthonic deities. So both men actually, in that sense, live in slightly underground caves at the side of the road. If you see, I mean, they not only are attached to the earth, part of the earth, but they live in it. And I just, in that essence, this birth of Paul is a chthonic birth, I think. Don't know what you think, guys. Is me running off on my mad mythology stuff and all of that. I'm going to catch up with some of your comments because they're running away from me, and let's just see where we're at, folks. Hit them in the space would indeed make it. The unknown unknowns, yes. I love stuff like that. In the last chapter, both Paul and Jessica looked at the Fremen manual. Yeah, Paul looked at the list of tools. Jessica looked at the title, Signs of Missionary Protective, and the constellations, presentation versus use. Very good. Yeah. Now she sees the tools in a new context, maybe Paul's context, not the manual of the friendly desert of the title, but signs of danger. Isn't yeah, very good, Cynthia. Yeah, it's oh, you're right. The focus is the missionary protective has been here, hasn't it? I wonder how I'm going to fit into that. What's all these tools for? Oh crap! Because if she can pick that up from some of these, what do these tools signify? What does that this is a harsh world. It's dangerous. But yes, indeed, it's a shift, isn't it, from the orbit of the Bene Gesserit, if you like, using that phrase, to the orbit of Paul that she is now in. So it could have been the death of Paul as he is born anew. Yes, it's one of those. It's not a literal death. It's we have this that it is a little death, isn't it? Fear is the mind killer. It is a little death. Something I want to talk about actually, if we can get to the point we were talking about. It's a good point in the book to possibly mull over everything we've learned. In terms of two incredibly important words, I'm analyzing. I've approached Dune from many different routes, I suppose. The one that because I'm a bit with all of that, the one that I'm looking at is how Frank writes. Really, I'm picking his writing apart here. Not commenting on it too much, I think, but yeah. In this sense, sorry, I lost my train of thought here a wee second ago. I'm trying to think of what I was at. So it could have been the death of Paul as he's born anew. Or many deaths regarding the shooting stars. I suppose with each star, I suppose over Caladan, That's a good point, Brad. That the star signifies, as it was for his father over Caladan, so for Paul and June. Yeah, and all of these meteor storm could signify all the deaths of the the Atreides men. Hmm. Sorry, what was it? Let me just see if I can get my train of thought back. Ugh, I've missed so much. Hiram Soup Pot. This is Soup Pot. There's not been that much, to be honest. It's a pretty short chapter, but it's a pretty nifty one, I think, and conveying a lot of getting us ready. We too, a bit like Paul, I suppose, we're about to emerge. We've been kept in Arrakeen. We've been in castles on Caladan, castles on Gidi Prime, but we haven't really got out too much. We've had a little field trip as we went to look at the spice mining, if you see what I mean. But there's they haven't really, neither they're not only out in the planet, they're in it. You couldn't be more up to your neck in sand in Arrakis, if you like. So I've been going on about chthonic deities and stuff like that. Apologies. So the whole the birth, death, rebirth, and it's the little deaths. That's what I was thinking about, Brad. Sorry. Fear is the mind killer. The two words that I think are really crucial to all the way through the first book of Dune. Well, there's actually a couple more, but we haven't really paid too much attention to them because we're quite comfortable with them. One of them is terror, or any form of the word terror. So terrible, terrifying, this kind of thing. And the other one is fear. So fear and terror are very much a big part of all that's been going on in Dune, and I'd just like to point out that they are the children of Ares, the god of war. And their involvement, so involvement in Trojan War, this kind of thing, the metaphysical almost aspect of the interaction of Dune. We could almost look at it that way, couldn't we? Hope is incredibly important. Hope is mentioned an awful lot. And there's I suppose there was one other thing, but really fear and terror, and just in terms of been thinking about them as emotions, rather than actually having. And if you understand that the Trojan War is a war that happened, it's not a myth, it's actual fact. Notice I didn't say the word history there. History is when you look into something. It is a fact, but if you take the reportage of the Iliad, for example, and the Odyssey, take out the gods, and you've got pretty much a fair idea of what happened. Just remove the divine element, if you like. So in terms of how much Herbert's reconstructed, we see elements of the Trojan War and the fall of Troy and the fall of Arrakeen and all of this stuff. Sorry, I keep losing my train of thought tonight. Oh yeah, it was just the fear and terror, the emotions. We could almost have a look at those as overlays of, if you like, many Greek gods and demigods, etc., are personifications of things, if you like, and we've a fair bit of that as well in this book. So let's see. Let me see. Is that me caught up? But yeah, some good points, folks. Keep firing them away. Many just absolutely. And again, the deaths, the rebirth and death. There, I suppose, almost every kind of crisis point with Paul is a little death, if you like, whether it be the Gom Jabbar, the Hunter Seeker, all of these kind of things. Paul is manifest. But can you expand on that? I need another word to go with manifest. I think you probably are. You're probably typing, and it happens. So just oh, goodness sake, my head's all over the place. Tonight, that's a load of nonsense, isn't it? Let me get some juice in here. Not enough coffee, I think, and it's my sleep's all over the place at the moment. Yeah. So we have these. We can take it as it's not a literal death, but oh God, you're becoming, Matt, if you dig, I dig, and so does Paul. I got you, Soup Pot. Thank you. Sometimes I have to wonder, is the context back a bit from what I was saying, which is why I get confused a wee bit. Right, let's see where we're at. So yes, indeed. It's just we got distracted a wee bit there by fear and terror, but I just thought I'd bring it in there a wee second. Now, let's see. So you hurry up, I want to collapse the tent. We talked about cheek, hand, feet, etc. with Jessica as we go through this. Shower of sand from the surface brushed her left hand. How much sand will the hand hold? We covered that wee bit, didn't it? Bit of a metaphysical question. And here we go. So help out. Nope, we got there. Right, sorry. I know where I'm at. Noise of small animals. Okay. So Jessica's probing the further darkness with her trained senses, and we get the noise of small animals. Birds, a fall of dislodged sand, and faint creature sounds within it. Someone who's read Dune before, I'm wondering, ooh, wonder what they are. So Paul collapses the tent underground and recovers it up, pulls it up through the hole. So it's a rather handy tent, isn't it? The still tent. I suppose if you think about it back then, we get all sorts of tents that pop up and do all this stuff these days, but I don't think they were commonplace back in the 50s and 60s. So, and of course, simply put, noise of small animals, birds, it's life, isn't it? It's life on this incredibly hostile planet, and they're in the desert and they've been buried in sand and popped up, but there's life all around them if you listen. Faint creature sounds with them. And again, Paul brings this up. The tent back up through this passageway, and if you want to consider that almost like sorry for this, but I suppose it's almost like afterbirth, if you like, bringing out the birthing process is complete, and they're going to repack it up. But it is there's I really must should have sorry. It's just because of time, folks. I have a bit of an essay that I started to write a long time ago, and I found it, but I haven't had time to read it. And it links this all up to the Dragon in the Sea. If anybody has got a copy of the Dragon in the Sea, look to the section where the submarine, the Fenian Ram, is launched. And it's all to do with the psychology of the man going and it's about being birthed, being born. And you swap water for sand here, and you've got almost the same scene. Instead of a submarine, you've got a tent. Instead of the 2 people in the tent, you've got the 4 people in the crew. The whole process, and there's so much in the Dragon in the Sea that if you've a good knowledge of Dune, you'll go, bloody hell. It is almost a practice run, you know. Yeah. So let's see. And we're up. Yes, we're up on. So they're up on basically starlight displays just enough of the night to charge each shadow with menace. So they're not safe. Come out this way, there's nothing around. She looked at patches of blackness. Black is blind remembering, she thought. You listen for pack sounds, for the cries of those who hunted your ancestors in a past so ancient, only your most primitive cells remember. The ears see, the nostrils see. About our extra senses. And again, I think this is starting to run. We've only heard it mentioned once, and again, we were just talking briefly about the word terror, terrible, terrifying, etc., but particularly to do with Paul's terrible purpose. What is it? Up until the previous chapter, Paul's terrible purpose has been referred to as this. It's been a mystery. It's now been answered for us. What is Paul's terrible purpose? Race memory. It's what the Bene Gesserit are after, but of course we get the sense that race memory in Dune, if you want to use that term, is actually gender memory, if you like. It's gender specific race memory, isn't it? It's very interesting, as is the whole concept of race, I suppose. So the ears can see, the nostrils see. It's our senses. There's something. It's a primitive, again, this kind of sense, if you like, black. And it's something to do with. I think in this case, black is blind remembering. We talk about pack sounds, you know, like in the darkness, cries for those who hunted your ancestors in the past. So ancient, only your primitive cells remember. The ears see, the nostrils see. Possibly even going back to creatures so primitive that they didn't have eyes, if you see what I mean. I think the development of eyes is pretty important in the development of living things. So, just that primeval, if you like, primitive. I'm a fan of the word primitive. Just tends to mean first. Doesn't mean rubbish, crap, simple, shitty, or any of those things. People often use the word primitive. It's often used to condescend. It should not be the case. It's often that primitive tools are highly inventive and display extraordinary mental abilities in the people that invented them, if you see what I mean. What's the word I'm thinking on? Is it aborigine? You know, if you want to know who the aborigines are, you'll find that they're Romans. Well, they're from around Rome. And the term now applies to sort of indigenous peoples, if you like. Let me see. Now, so Paul's up beside her, and we're getting a bit of it again. You know, a little bit more reportage, I suppose. Duncan told me if he was captured, he could hold out this long, and I think that's quite funny. How long is a piece of string, if you like, or how much sand will the hand hold? How long will Duncan hold out torturing? For anybody to give someone else a reasonable approximation of how long they can hold out under torture has no idea how torture works, and none at all. So I think it's just a curious kind of, you know, Frank applying a bit of his storytelling chops to something, but it seems a bit silly. We must leave here now. So regardless of what Duncan has said, you know, the time that he's given, based on his ability to hold out against torture, I suppose, the time to go is now. So they've come out of this suit. They've come out from the earth itself up onto the surface. They're on the surface of Rags, looking about in their new second skins, their still suits. They're both new people. They have both been reborn anew. Paul's a Kwisatz Haderach. He's Muad'Dib. He's a Mentat. Jessica is no longer the lady of a duke. She's now a duke's mother. She's pregnant with Alia, and she's going to become a holy religious figure as she takes her place in the Bene Gesserit's Missionaria Protectiva. As we pointed out, it's not designed to help people just pop in and merge with society. It's about a power and position, a power and control position within society for her and her son. So they're both, and their old life is dead. So that's our death, rebirth, death, birth, renewal on many. We could almost script. It works on a whole lot of different levels. And as I said, if anybody does get a wee chance to look at the Dragon in the Sea, Under Pressure, 21st Century, so compare this chapter to the launching of that submarine, with the crew getting into the submarine, being launched into to begin their mission in this to go after the oil. I suppose it's about oil as well, hydraulic despotism and stuff like that. So here we go. Let's see. So they shoulder their pack and get up onto the shallow lip of a basin. They climb to a ledge and look down upon the open desert. And Jessica follows automatically. Here we are. I'm looking for my wee notes here. Noting, and here we go. This is the word we used a wee moment earlier. Noting how she now lived in her son's orbit. And we talked about him being framed with stars. And almost that in that sense, in her son's orbit, that she is a planet to his star, or more than likely, she's a moon to his world, if you like. You can take it either way. Yeah. And I suppose it's one of those things that must come with the Pfeiffer-like system itself, if you think on terms of inheritance and things like that. It's quite a possible thing, that one day your duke dies and suddenly your allegiance is to another person, if you see what I mean. The Oedipal thing here is quite reasoned as well. I think that at the point of death of a king, that king's wife becomes property in the ancient world to the new king, if you see what I mean, is usurped. So as much as she's not become Paul's wife, she is his mother. And instead of being within the orbit of the and equal to the person, if you like, in partnership with though she's not technically, of a ducal household, if you like. She's now the mother of and has no direct linkage, if you see what I mean. In order to who's coming next, if that's not making any sense, is it? What am I trying to say? Yeah, I suppose he's the power now. I suppose before his power would have been whatever power Paul had would have been subservient to her as his mother and to Duke Leto as his father and the Duke. He's now the Duke. He is the power. And he's the Duke of Arrakis, isn't he? It's a ducal 5 here. Now, let's see where we're at, folks. Okay, near the end here, not too much further to go, I think. So, yes, she's now in the orbit of her sun. Aha, there we go. And here we have this bit. For now is my grief heavier than the sands of the seas, she thought. The world has emptied me of all but the oldest purpose, tomorrow's life. I live now for my young Duke and the daughter yet to be. Another wee reminder of Alia, who's yet to be. And she felt the sand drag her feet. There we go. Cheek, hands, feet. As she climbed to Paul's side. Now, let me see. She lives. So that's it. She's. I live now for the oldest of purposes. Survive. Produce the next generation. Reproduction. It's essentially what she's saying there. And if she doesn't say that specifically, and I think that, I think the little phrase, I'm not too sure, it has religious. It sounds religious anyway. I did a wee brief search and couldn't seem to find anything. For now is my grief heavier than the sands of the seas. It's at the very least, it's poetic. It's got sibilance and alliteration, etc. in it. So it does have a bit of a religious sound to it. I'm not too sure if maybe have a wee look at it after the program's over here tonight. But she's emptied me of all this world, and it's this world. Arrakis again. Arrakis has helped kill my father. I'm really angry at Arrakis that the world itself is taking a bit of a, from this family. This world, it's this world, not the Harkonnens, not the murder, not the Emperor. This world has emptied me of all but the oldest purpose. So tomorrow's life, reproduction. I live now for my young Duke and the daughter yet to be, for the young, my children, basically. So again, we have that, the sand touching at her. It's almost the way the sand's touching at her. It's like a little whisper. If you remember the how we talked about how Leto II touched her and how different sort of things that sort of reacted with Jessica's physicality, if you like. But it was always like wisping, gentle kind of things. Face, hands, feet. This is the desert. This is the world. Kind of almost saying hello to her now, if you know what I mean. It's like, come on, and that she still hasn't accepted it because she still hasn't drunk the water from that tube. She will not accept it yet. She hasn't yet, anyway. Yeah. Bit sad, I suppose. So Paul looks to the north, studying a distant escarpment, and we get a rather interesting analogy here. We're told, or a simile, I suppose, a couple of similes. The rocks are like an ancient battleship of the seas. Of course, there is a battle still going on in the background. There's a particular outcropping of rock that seems to remind Paul of an ancient battleship. The faraway rock profile was like an ancient battleship of the seas outlined by stars, just as he was outlined a moment ago. The long swish of it, lifted on an invisible wave with syllables of boomerang antennae, funnels arcing back, a pie-shaped upthrusting at the stern. Pi as in the Greek letter. So yeah, it seems to be like this kind of World War II ship. We talked about Frank serving on ship and getting himself injured. I think he fell and clunked his head or something, didn't he? Dear. Was it my great grandfather was in the Battle of the Somme? He survived, and if you know the history of the Ulster regiments, most of them didn't. But how he survived is by getting shot in the right place. What was it called? $1 million wound, if you like. Going over, I think my great grandfather, was going up over the trenches and got shot in the leg and went back in the trench, and that's how he survived the Battle of the Somme. by getting badly shot. No, let me see. Books of Marvel. Hey, Soup, I'm doing stuff this morning, so I'm slow to read comments, says Brad. Soup, that's fine. Even their diet changes. And chapter 21 says, Cynthia, the Baron thinks that nothing is more beautiful than the utter emptiness of black. Yes, aesthetic replacing or covering up memory. I kind of get that sense, that blackness, if you know what I mean. Whenever you close your eyes, I would never go to get my eyes checked out because I need to go get my eyes looked at very soon. My mother had glaucoma, so I'm susceptible to it. And every time I get my eyes checked, I don't know if you get the torch thing. On my optician, I always said it's like red cracked mud. And he says, "What are you talking about?" I says, "Well, I can see through my eyelids. It's like red mud with cracks." And he goes, "Oh, can you see that?" And I went, "Yeah." And well, I don't know if this is true or not, but he told me only about 1 in 4 people actually see that. I don't know. But when we close our eyes, the blackness there is never utterly black, is it? It is that sense of, in a world without light, something primordial. The utter emptiness of black. I quite like black myself. I think it's you could describe black as the absence of color, if you like. But yeah, aesthetically pleasing, covering up memory. I was wondering about this, Cynthia. You've just pinged. Sorry, I keep using the word ping. Pinged something in my head, and I'm going to run with it very quickly now. See what you think, folks. We're going to run back to Jessica's dream. A woman not quite visible to memory was going away. Memory's there. She remembers the woman, but she's not quite visible. I was wondering, is it another Bene Gesserit mental block, an inhibitor or something? You know, we've seen these. Isn't it her reaction to the? Is it the Baron Harkonnen thing? Isn't it that she seems unable to even say it or something? I've got the sense that there are Bene Gesserit mental blocks in Jessica. But that's right, Cynthia. That's just made me think of that there. It's weird that the MP said a BG with a male child. The BG. What's that? MP? Missionary Protective. Right. God, yeah. It's weird that the Missionary Protective has said a Bene Gesserit with a male child. It's a male-orientated universe. It's a bigoted universe. If you want to throw the word patriarchy or whatever you like in there. The role of fathers, eh? Yeah, it's a completely sexist universe. To be honest with you, Brad, the reason, Bene Gesserit, we're the Missionary Protective of Bene Gesserit with a male child. The Bene Gesserit can choose the birth of or choose the gender of their children. So it's more of a question of what choice do you make and what culture do you arrive in, and is that culture male orientated? If you see what I mean. So if you land on a planet of lesbian feminists, I'd say the male baby would be the wrong choice for the Bene Gesserit there. If you see what I mean. So I think it's really just to do with the nature of the Missionary Protective, as I understand it, varies from world to world. It's that's why they drop these Bene Gesserit in there. The myths are tailored to suit the planet. So there's research done on it. So I'd simply weird that the missionaries had a Bene Gesserit with a male child. In this sense, I think that's because the Fremen are, a male-dominated culture. Just an idea. If needed, the Bene Gesserit could imprint any male to pass for her son. The male is unimportant ultimately. The Missionary Protective. Yeah, it's a tool of survival, isn't it? Ultimately, it's the fact that in relation to this particular myth, it's not that anybody, and we can see that the myth's kind of been manipulated by Pardo Kynes. We'll look at the appendix whenever we get to the back of the book that's there. So the fact that the myth is already there and it has been prepared, it allows the Kynes family to use it for ecological purposes. So my understanding is that the missionary protective, as much as it's in place, is an emergency kind of an incredibly well thought out emergency setup for any Bene Gesserit who finds themselves on a hostile planet in an emergency situation of some kind. It's generally, I think there's Bene Gesserit probably walking all over Arrakis at this point. Or not all of them, but there are Bene Gesserit here and there. They're not all immediately right. Got to fall into this myth. So it's for a crisis point, really. I think. But I'd say that in this sense, it could be a female child for another planet. If you see, I mean, I think it's tailored for each world. Bespoke myth. The son of Jessica's daughter with Phage was to be the Kwisatz Haderach. Oh, hang on, I missed a couple there. Hang on, that's correct. Excuse me. The male is unimportantly Allah the missionary protector. The son of Jessica's daughter with Kwisatz with Phage was to be the Kwisatz Haderach. Correct. I have thought the vast majority of Bene Gesserit would be female. I mean, you basically raised a very interesting point, Brad. To wipe out, to take power utterly and wipe out everyone. All it takes is now, if you understand, let's call it generation 18 to 20 years, okay? Then it takes 5 generations if you get rid of for the Bene Gesserit to produce only female children. So parthenogenesis, which does occur in nature, where males aren't around to fertilize females, sharks, I think, particularly. It happens with other species. So potentially, if they ever and then they could start having men again if they wished, male children. But they could simply breed men out of existence if they can control the gender of their, the embryo at birth, a point of conception. Sorry, then why not do that? So simply put, what the Bene Gesserit in this book actually do is make men completely redundant. They're not necessary. At all. It was going to be male, so missionary protective was setting a stage. Yeah, it's. I'd argue that if they're going to go for a Kwisatz Haderach, put it this way, I think Melange is heavily involved in that. The use of drugs and that purpose. Excuse me a wee second. The doggy's looking at. Do you want it, love? There you go. There you go. That's a good girl. We were having a wee chat about what the effects of melange are, particularly within prescience. What the Bene Gesserit want the Kwisatz Haderach to be. Massive amounts of melange, I think, are going to be involved. As Arrakis is the only planet that has that, I think it makes sense that the Bene Gesserit would have a myth set up for the Kwisatz Haderach. But I think it would be adaptable. I think any Bene Gesserit could fall and fit into that pattern. It actually got me wondering about the line of women that's within Siege Tabar, and the Reverend Mother Ramallo, etc. Sayadina's, and is she an actual Bene Gesserit? No worries. Yeah, I think you're right. They'd have to be tailor-made. I'll give you a good example of this, Soup Pot. If you want to look at, say, Zeus, right? Now, most of us go and have that. Hey, tell me who Zeus is. Okay, Zeus is a Greek god, right? And people go, fine, right? There's Zeus, right? There are thousands of variations of Zeus. Thousands. Regional, town to town, different. Oh, Zeus who does this, Zeus who did that. Sometimes it's a local deity or even a hero who's that's Dave the Zeus. I mean, this kind of thing. There are many versions of many gods regionally and locally in the ancient world, and I would say that within mythology, particularly things like Apollodorus's work. That's what he's doing in this. He's trying to get the ancient myths. At that time, I suppose, but we get alternative versions of them, and then Robert Graves's book on the Greek myths, I think, is in other words, he's trying to get different variations of local flavor. And in particular, if you read I'd say even just have a look at. I haven't, not that I would look at Wikipedia for Zeus, but have a look at Zeus on Wikipedia. You're bound to see. You should see, if it's been done correctly, lots of links to variations of the name of Zeus, various epithets of Zeus or regional flavors. There should be tons of them, to be honest with you, if they've done their work. Hmm. They already knew that the Kwisatz Haderach was to be male from the beginning. That's correct. Oh, hang on, have I missed out a few things again there? Brad saying lizards and frogs too. Yeah, factoring on verba and parthenogenesis is really interesting because we have a parthenogenic goddess as well, Athena. The Parthenon. Yeah, is the figure out that one. There you go. Parthenogenesis. It's the temple of the Virgin, isn't it? Athena. But they already knew that the Kwisatz Haderach was to be male from the beginning. Is the point of the Kwisatz Haderach? We have we have gender-specific female race memory. The Kwisatz Haderach, we need male. So we want the race memory, race consciousness, whatever you want to call it, from the male line. If we understand a bit about DNA and all that stuff, then that really that's the end of your story right there. It doesn't make any sense anymore. I already knew that because from the beginning. Yeah, Zeus, bringer of storms and thunder, hurler. That's indeed him. Hello, love. My wife's just joining me off to the side there. But yeah, I mean, goodness gracious. What was it? Even if you read the Iliad and stuff, you get various epithets of heroes. I remember sort of getting my son to try and read the Iliad a wee bit to help him with his pronunciation. We were talking about, Apollo with his far-ranging arrows and all of this kind of thing. Bringer of storms. Yeah, why is Zeus is pretty interesting. Here's one for you. If you think about a lot of religions and so on, sun gods, yeah, should be all powerful in that sense. But why often is the thunder guy? He's the chief god, because Apollo is a sun deity. If you think about it, it's because people are more scared of storms and lightning. Don't know what they are. They know what the sun is. The sun's comforting, brings life and stuff. But that's tend to be why most of your chiefs of your religious pantheons are thunder gods, if you like, thunder and lightning. Sootpot says the Bene Gesserit don't know about the water of life at this point. Ramallo is okay, we've got a wee bit of a conversation going. Yeah, the Reverend Mother Ramallo is a wild Reverend Mother. You think? It's quite possible. I actually, well, should they do the Reverend Mothers from Bene Gesserit and they would have reported it? I don't know. Yeah, the water of life. Have you heard of it? It's interesting if that's the drug that they use to look within. Then that's a commodity to the Bene Gesserit, isn't it? That the Fremen could have been selling them. Would you like some newborn worm vomit? To test your Reverend Mother. This kind of thing. I don't know. Use a poison for their agony. Yeah, I kind of got the sense that the spice agony could be conducted with different poisons as long as they're spectrum awareness poisons. The key is that it's a poison. I suppose we're going to get to that. Then how Patheno is used in one of the dinosaur movies for the life of me. I can't remember the name. The lost one. Really? Oh dear. Yeah, there's some good science fiction books on that kind of stuff. I love to go. I've seen the Elgin Marbles, by the way, and I've never been to the Parthenon. I'd love to. Any chance to go to Greece would be amazing from my point of view. There you go. Dedicated to the goddess Athena. The Elgin Marbles, there's all the stripped sides and friezes that have been pulled off by the British, and you'll find them in the British Museum. Absolute appalling cultural theft. It's big, and they've been damaged quite badly by the British Museum actually over the years. Well, they're known as the Elgin Marbles now, which is absolute, yeah, just a testimony to Britain's history as a nation of thieves, pirates, and killers across the world for hundreds of years. There's the basis of all your democracy and a kind of a symbol of democracy, isn't it, the Parthenon? But it sits in the British Museum under the Queen of England's rule. Disgusting. Sorry, I'm a classicist and a Hellenist as well, so I like my ancient Greek stuff to be in ancient Greece, if you like. Oh, modern Greece, but Embryonic human parthenogenesis has been achieved in the lab. Not surprised. Yeah, nuclear infusion with Dolly the sheep going way back. Used to know somebody involved with that. Bojack Harkness, was it maybe a Bene Gesserit plan to get the Atreides on Arrakis so that Jessica's child would come in constant contact with spice? Sootpot says, as a Scot, I agree. Was that Elgin Marbles? Sootpot. Yeah, they don't belong there. Simple as that. Fuck England. It's been doing that to itself a fair bit, I don't think. Yeah. Yeah. The British Empire is the English Empire. And it's we talked about the Greek interpretation, the Roman interpretation, the English interpretation is your King James Bible and all of that stuff, So it's how to control people through religion, nothing else. It's the Queen's God's personal agent on earth, isn't she? And her very dodgy children. Dear. Weren't the Ottoman Turks using the Parthenon as a powder magazine? Oh no, you're looking at modern history of it. Yeah, I think it was the argument with it, Chris, is that I think it was sold. If you see what I mean. So the British argument tends to be we've done nothing wrong, we bought it. But the person who sold it to them, if I remember, I haven't looked at this in years. Had no right to sell it. It's one of those things. It's interesting. If anybody's ever interested, there's something really bizarre in the ancient world. If you want to look it up, you'll find it in. It reminded me so much on Trump actually, but you'll find it in Edward Gibbon's Decline and Fall of the Roman Empire. There's about a guy who sold the Roman Empire. And he did it. He sold the whole Roman Empire, and he got. Sorry, I'm being a bit loud here because I can't hear me properly. But he sold the whole thing, and he got away. He didn't get away with it for too long, but he got away with it for long enough that it's certainly an event recorded in the past and open to historical interpretation. 2007, Huang Wu Suk, not the same as cloning. No, and nuclear infusion is not cloning, I think, in that sense. But that's the last thing I looked at that, really. I would have a wee look at that. Thanks for that, colleges. That sounds that's interesting. Blah, blah, blah. Let's see. Huang Wu Suk. Suk! Of all the words when we were looking at Dune. Suk. What a great... It's a great word, isn't it, Suk? Sounds good. Now... As a diaspora Irishman, I agree. The diaspora, yes, indeed. Yes. Would you think that idea has been floated before, that maybe they're part of the plan with the Emperor? Oh, have I missed something? Hang on, let me see. Was it maybe a Bene Gesserit plan to get the Atreides on Arrakis so that Jessica's child would come in contact with? I think regardless of what their Kwisatz Haderach, how should I put this, candidate, if you like, no matter who they were, I think large amounts of melange would be required. If they didn't have to take him, if they didn't have to go to Arrakis, they could put him in a tank, couldn't they? Like the Guild, I think. I don't know. There's so much to these plans, and I would argue that any kind of very long-term plan. If you look at Asimov's ideas about future history and psychohistory and foundation, any kind of long-term plan would have to be chaotic and have to be highly adaptable to change. Wasn't they say no plan survives contact with the enemy, something like that, isn't it? I get a lot of grief from a lot of people for seemingly to never stick to plans, and the simple fact is that the plans always change. I'm just highly adaptable. And I don't say I'm going to do this. Well, if it doesn't happen, I'm not going to go nuts over it. I'll adapt and change. If you see what I mean. Yeah, I mean, I think we're at a point now with technology, science and technology. We're going to get designer babies, all of these kind of things. But we're at a point where, as Arthur C. Clarke talks about it, it's a race, isn't it? It's always a race against destruction, and I'd say I don't know what the doomsday clock is at the minute, but it should have moved forward. We're in a really bad place at the minute, and we've identified a problem with warfare now in the nuclear age. Everyone's scared to fight a war against someone with shitloads of nuclear weapons because of we know what will happen. And I must dig out. I've got a rather good collection on nuclear war books from the nuclear war period, from the Cold War, stuff by Carl Sagan and all. It's quite interesting. Plans within plans within plans. Yeah, and it's that constant iteration. When was the BTKH? Benny Twilax, Kwisatz Haderach hatched. Good question. It's a very good question, Sootpot. I don't think we know, but I'm pretty sure. It it's very interesting because would a Kwisatz? It's got to be before Paul takes this. No, is it after? It can be any time. I don't know. It could be any time from the point of Paul's birth, I think, up to the point where he's on the throne. So it would depend on, as you say, hatched. So we can pop an instantly grown person if you like. It's a very good question. I don't think there's a specific, but at the point where it's discussed in the book is, I believe, at the beginning of Dune Messiah with the conspiracy. So at that point, it's happened in the past. If you see what I mean. If that's what you meant with the Benny Twilax Kwisatz Haderach hatched, yeah. And of course, that's that really big link into Samuel Butler's Erewhon. That's Paul. Was it Frank Herbert often talked about these points of absolute identity, and the people who are prescient who commit suicide because they can't take it in Erewhon. The ancestors of the Erewhonians who were all prescient, they all commit suicide within 6 months. After Skytail, yes, spot on. That saw Quizarate and said we can do that, then go to rebirth possible. Well, they sealed the deal for them. We'll get to the details when we get there. As I said, I'm really looking forward to that. And I do think in terms of understanding all of Dune, as much as everything's laid down for us that to see, I think Dune Messiah is the book that really opens our eyes. I'd say that there's two. My memory with the last two books is poor, but I'd say that Dune Messiah and God Emperor of Dune do the most to explain things. I'd say Dune Messiah does a lot to explain things for us. God Emperor, I think that's where Frank's decided to explain it to us, because we haven't. I think there's something about God Emperor of Dune where I think Herbert wasn't too sure his audience got it. And as much as we get that reiteration of it, we're actually having the God Emperor explain to us everything about Paul and what we should have figured out about him, if you see what I mean. So the greatest critic of Paul Atreides is his son, Leto II, but we'll not get there for a while, So where are we going? Yeah, so this battleship kind of looking, it's an outcropping of rock and escarpment, isn't it? That just kind of has that outline almost like it reminds him of a battleship from the ancient sea battles, I suppose. We get these orange and purple. Orange glare above the silhouette, line of brilliant purple, another line of purple, another glare of orange. Let's have a look. The orange glare burst above the silhouette and a line of brilliant purple cut downward towards the glare. Another line of purple, exclamation mark. Another upthrusting orange glare, exclamation mark. Frank Herbert's very guilty of bangaria, by the way, which is a portmanteau word of a combination of the word bang and diarrhea, as the overuse of exclamation marks. That's bad writing right there. I'll point it out. It's bad punctuation at the very least. And it was like an ancient naval battle, remembered shell fire, and the sight held them staring. Pillars of fire again. We kept mentioning that the last few chapters back, haven't we? These pillars of fire. Orange and green. Sorry, orange and green. Orange and purple. And I think the purple thing's quite interesting here as well. So this is just as we come to the conclusion of this chapter. We get this ring of red eyes over the distant rock lines. And these lines of purple lace the sky. We're told this is jet flares and las guns. Let's see, 36. So the dust, Jessica says that, jet flares and las guns. And the dust-reddened first moon of Arrakis lifted above the horizon to their left, and they saw a storm trail there, a ribbon of movement over the desert. I like the red blood moon rising, if you like, and the first moon has the hand on it. So that's your red hand, if you like, blood, and all of that symbolism. And of course, the Fremen are the children of Nazir, and they're also known as the children of the moon. And there's large associations, particularly with the sun and the moon, with Paul, Jessica, and Alia as well. And we've just kind of had a bit of that, if you like. Paul is the sun that his mother must orbit around, if you like. So there's a little bit of a hint there. There's a storm trail moving in. There's some kind of trail that doesn't seem to pick up on their thoughts, though. A ribbon of movement over the desert. It must be the Harkonnen Thopters hunting, as Paul said. The way they're cutting up the desert, it's as though they were making certain they stamped out whatever's there, the way you'd stamp out a nest of insects. Or a nest of Atreides, Jessica said. We must seek cover. We'll head south and keep to the rocks. If they caught us in the open, he turned, adjusting the pack to his shoulders. They're killing anything that moves. He took one step along the ledge and, in that instant, heard the low hiss of a gliding aircraft, saw the dark shapes of ornithopters above them. How they missed that, I don't really know, but I'd imagine they'd be pretty noisy. And once again, for the reader, we have one of these little cliffhangers. And we're starting to get a sense of our eyes. There's one wee thing I put there: purple laced the sky, purple, lines of purple. And I think it was just that associated with Leto's purple color is important. We're going to have a wee look at color, aren't we? In relation to Frank, and we need to look at it in two different ways, I suppose. We need to look at color in a Jungian way. So I must try and get a wee bit of research done on it, just to have it. What would be nice is to have a little chart I could stick on the wall or something, actually, that we can run with that. But there we go, a very, very short chapter, folks, and it's actually taken us a really short chapter. It's taken us a little bit of time to get through it. There's an awful lot here, and nothing really happens, if you see what I mean. We have it's thoughts of survival, what's happened, the sense of being under this desert, getting ready to emerge. We have a dream from Jessica. A nightmare, we should call it, really, shouldn't we? A disconcerting dream at best. We have little mysteries about Jessica's mother, talk about desert power, the Fremen, the concern with moisture here, the special application equipment, things like the static compaction tool, is it the power compasses in this one? No, maybe not. We've also got this emergence into Arrakis, and of course we're not popping out and looking at it in the daylight. They're coming out to live on it at night, the way the Fremen do. They're starting to have we get all this imagery of the meteors that matches up with the meteors streaking across Caledon, Leto's death, as we said. Looks like maybe same sort of metaphors and imagery, and constantly repeating within, kind of back forward, that kind of thing. If you see what I mean. We've got the race memory brought up. We don't know where Duncan is. The battle is still going on in the distance, and all it is a little bits of orange and purple light. And again, this as we like to point out, anti-war novel. Bear with me a wee second, folks, very quickly. I think I did find something. That's us through that chapter anyway. This is the first chapter, of Muad'Dib. And I had found a couple of wee things. I'm just going to run through the quotes here a wee second, but I'll see if I can find it. And there is actually some interesting stuff of this. Now, let me see. Some Frank's thoughts on how to write sci-fi. No, bear with it. So the things that we were talking about, here's the equipment, for example, in Dragon in the Sea. This is a thing called an emotional telemeter, a little device worn on your wrist during deep dives. Needle goes into your vein, tells you if your CO2 diffusion is fast enough so you won't crock out. It also tattles on nitrogen. Little things from the dragon in the sea, I think, are very important. I've got some comments here about how Frank looks at modern day jihads, which might be very interesting to some people. Let me see. Some tongues won't let this to dive below 1,000 feet. If you change the word pressure here, I want you to listen to something. This is just a wee quick quote, and this is out of context, but in relation to Paul's tarot. The dreams that Ramsay has show Herbert's interest in exploration of Jungian psychology and the importance of dreams to that particular school of thought. Ramsay's first dream is that he's a fish living deep in the ocean, trying to discover how to rise to the surface. Presently, he fell asleep. This is the quote. Presently, he fell asleep, dreamed that he was a deep-dwelling fish, trying to figure out a way to climb to the light of the surface far away above him. The problem was that a terrible pressure held him trapped in the deeps. Pardon me. And I have quotes here about this in utero kind of thing, but I need to get context for it so I can present it to you properly, folks, hopefully. And if I don't have enough context here, then I'll have to rewrite it. Men should get one last look at the stars before they go under the sea. Right, there we go. If one other wee thing, by the way, wanted to point out the stilltent and how we talked about it, maybe in relation to birth. The stilltent here works the same way a dracone does. So a dracone is this. These are these inflatable oil barges invented by Dunlop, based on ideas from Frank Herbert's Dragon in the Sea. So essentially, imagine it's a big thing. You inflate it, you can fill it with oil, take it to where you need, and then you can empty it, pack it up, and fly it back again, etc. That somewhere like that. So there's an awful lot of stuff there. Let's have a wee look at your comments here, folks. Let's see. We catch up, adapt, and survive. Yeah, we'll have to. The Benny Tlilax Kwisatz Haderach, it's such a weird thing that the Benny Tlilax are hardly in this book, isn't it? Especially when there's we talk about pairings and stuff like that, especially when and looking at the Benny, I think the Benny Gesserit and the Benny Tlilax should be looked at hand in hand. I think they're very interesting. That's Chris says Dan Davis History is a YouTuber who's covered the various manifestations of the thunder gods in Europe and India. Excellent. Yeah, there's all sorts, not just Europe and India. I think it's kind of probably a global thing, to be honest. But it is interesting, I think, if you think about who should be your most powerful deity in a pantheon. It probably should be the sun, really. I think so. It's interesting that sun gods like Apollo are subservient to Zeus, if you see what I mean. Frank was a sociologist first, says Factor Nonverbal, then a writer. Don't be too hard on his punctuation. I'm not being. E. Cummings showed his rules were made to be broken anyways. Couldn't agree more. In fact, to be honest with you, but an indicator, punctuation is an indicator, and even punctuation works in different languages, but it does indicate how you're supposed to speak. So no one's actually speaking there at all. It's it's from the narrator, a third person omnipotent narrator, if you like. So it shouldn't have, and he just loves them. And I don't mind exclamation marks, and I actually I think English could do with some punctuation from other languages as well. E. Cummins, rules are going to be broken. Absolutely. Brad says, alas, I must be off. My rugby league team have won 5 from 5. Congratulations, Brad. And I have to prepare now to set up for what will hopefully be 6 from 6. Goodbye, good people. Thanks very much, Brad. All the best to the team. Hope they do well. And take care of yourself, my friend. Thanks for joining us. Shai Hulud. Yes, indeed. A dream to some, a nightmare to others. Ah, are you a dream, Merlin? You're quoting me. Excalibur. There. Brilliant. Love that film. It's a very quotable movie, isn't it? My favorite part of Excalibur, I think the most wonderful part in it really is where Arthur comes to get Excalibur. Not that he knows that she has it from Guinevere, and she does have it. She's kept it all these years, and she asks him to forgive her. And it's actually that when he does so, but then it's the moment when he asks Guinevere to forgive him, and in a land of action heroes and macho bullshit, and throughout the 80s and 90s cinema in general, I think it's one of the finest moments in a film ever. It makes Arthur real. It makes him human, and it makes him better than human. It makes him King Arthur as well. If you see me, wonderful film. If anybody hasn't seen John Borman's Excalibur, get yourself a copy and prepare for the mighty drama of it. It's just beautiful, exquisite. Filmed in Ireland. Let's see. Oh, your soup pot. I can't. Memory with death. I've skim read some of them. I couldn't remember. You're asking the wrong person, soup pot. If anybody can help soup pot out, is the computer in Destination Void a Kwisatz Haderach? Well, you can answer that yourself, suppose. Is it a kind of super being that's created out of a point of crisis? Is it a bridge? You see, the thing is that the Kwisatz Haderach is nothing actually special in terms of literature. It's actually how a hero's created anyway. In terms of what a Kwisatz Haderach is and what it can do, heroes are often created out of a crisis point. If we go with the kind of modern interpretation of the hero rather than the ancient one, if you see what I mean. So I'm so sorry. I do have all this stuff here. Wouldn't it be just lovely that you could read a book in a couple of minutes? It would be so useful. All these things that we invent, and that's the one I could do with. If I can go bingo to some, house to the others. Absolutely. CNC, yes, Nicola Williamson is Merlin, tremendous, another blooming film I've watched many times. Yeah, I would just sit and watch it if it's on. I don't care, and I've lost count of how many times I've seen it. But I love my Arthurian myth. I love like my Wagner, and I like an awful lot of the actors in that film. It's got a very strong cast of Irish actors, who are pretty all very famous now, but they weren't back then. So it's like Liam Neeson and Kieran Hines and all. There's all who else we got? Gabriel Byrne. There's a wealth of talent in that film. That's just the Irish actors, Nicole Williamson. Well, famously him and Helen Mirren were a couple, weren't they? And then they'd had a bit of a Barney, I think, and then I think John Borman kind of used it for the energy on the film. Or ship, I should say, says Soup Pot. Ship. Just can't. Is it a spaceship? I cannot remember the book. Hang on. Can I jog my memory of all of them? What are we talking about? Destination Void, is it? Let me see. Who's on me, Franks? Oh, I can't see it handy at the minute, guys. I'll maybe have a wee nosy and look it up. I have the book here somewhere. I've just tried to. We had an awful lot of Frank Herbert stuff there, so I just tried to take a lot of his other novels and pile them over there for the now, just to try and concentrate on what we were doing, But I'll look into it, see if we can find out. Not many things to look into. Let me see. So many instantly recognizable lines at Chris Gibson. Yeah. The recent Green Knight movie was a decent visually. I actually thought, Frank, that the recent film, The Green Knight, is the only film that would go hand in hand with Excalibur in terms of feel and look and that sensibility. and I would happily watch the two of the films together. It's the first Arthurian film, or even any kind of mythical film, that has that sensibility to it. And I don't know if it was done deliberately or not, but it has a feel. It's not the same feel, but it has the right feel. And in terms of, I think Excalibur is one of the most authentic King Arthur films. Almost all of them are just made up crap, to be honest with you. And again, why change stories that are so good? If you see what I mean. But in terms of, I read epic poetry. I'm a big fan of epics of any kind, pretty much from around the world. Anything like that, epic sagas, fables, all of this kind of thing. I'm very familiar with the Sir Gawain and the Green Knight. One of my favorite Christmas stories. I absolutely love it. And I thought, my only criticism of the film is that they didn't finish it. They should have given you the ending. The ending is a good ending, but it's not the same. And I think what they did with the film is really, it does leave it to your imagination, doesn't it? But the film does have the story of Gawain and the Green Knight does have an ending. It's a Christian story, and it's kind of like a competition story. There's the exchange of blows, if you see what I mean. And it is a Christmas story, and I think it's a good one. I don't like Christmas stories very much, but in fact, I don't like Charles Dickens at all. But I do like The Christmas Carol. It's the only book of Charles Dickens I really like, and it kind of makes me. It's the same kind of thing, if you see what I mean. Yeah, I thought it was excellent, people keep talking about who should be the emperor, or different characters in Dune. I think Dev Patel would make a good emperor. Actually, do you know something? Dev Patel would have made a good. He would have made a good lead. Paul Atreides, even if he was younger, but he would have made a good Leto Atreides. Let me see. Still not West London. Peace. Oh, backing up a bit, so instantly recognise what recent Green Knight movie. It was excellent. It really was. And it's not everybody's cup of tea. And trust me, if you tried to read one of these things, I'd say 99 people out of 100 couldn't read it, or just wouldn't. It's a kind of literature that just people don't. They find it difficult rather than different, or of a product of a different time. If you see what I mean, it's not difficult. No problem, dog. It's good enough. You host this wonderful video chat. No worries, Mo. Peace. Right on. Yeah, still not logged my way through it. Anything about it pushed me away from it. Was that Gawain and the Green Knight? It's Gawain's a total shit. You have to understand that Gawain's a piece of crap. He really is. He's a twat. Sorry, but it's what makes him a knight of the Round Table, and you're seeing an arsehole of a knight go about his business. It's the ending is what makes him one of the greatest knights, and you don't get to see it. So why is Gawain one of the great knights of the Round Table, and what is it that makes him truly great? And it does make him. It's a story well worth reading, I think. Or Patrick Stewart's in it. Excalibur, absolutely. Well, he's in that in June. At the same time, same feel Sloan. No, it's not quite. It's I don't know. It come from a different direction with your studies. Arthurian myth. I've got a fondness for Rosemary Sutcliffe's The Sword at the Sunset. I haven't read any of it, but heard of the kids' book. Sorry. Same feel. Are you not? No, it's not quite what I meant. Colleges and camels. It's a hard thing to explain. If you see what I mean, it's to do with the nature of the myth, preserving it, and the feel. Yeah, it's an atmosphere thing. It's not quite the same, but we get to go through the whole thing in Excalibur, don't we? But I genuinely did feel that the way I felt was that this is the best Arthurian film since Excalibur, if you see what I mean. And Excalibur is my absolute. I don't like these things, but it is my all-time favorite film, and I'll never pick another film over it. I just love it too much. It means too much to me. And a genuine fondness for it on every level. I think Excalibur is a perfect movie, and a lot of people would probably think you're nuts. Yeah, it's okay. But I have a lot of the Arthurian heavy stuff, guys. I'll dig it out some night, actually. So we've got, Chrétien de Troyes here. Got half of it's anonymous. Not a why lot. Again, I'm not a particularly wealthy person. I buy what books as I can, where I can, if you see what I mean. But I've read a good chunk of the Arthurian myths, not all of them. And you're talking about a body of literature that starts around 500 AD and is arguably still going today, if you see what I mean. And I have been called nuts before colleges, yeah. Yeah, lots of different directions to things. That's what's interesting. You see, we all have our, our bent or bias or approach, if you like. Of It's something I say about all history, if you like. All history is an inquiry, but the nature of the question brings a certain bias with it, no matter what. We all have it, I suppose. But yeah, it's I don't know. I really enjoyed that film. The only thing about the Green Knight that I was and by the way, folks, you have to remember that somebody else has tried to make this film before, produced one of the absolute worst. Sorry, I nearly swore quite badly there. One of the worst films ever made. And what's it? It's got Sean Connery in it. Would you believe? There isn't. Oh, what's it called? Oh dear, oh dear, oh dear! It's so bad. It's so bad. No, and I can't remember. If you look, there's a Gawain and the Green Knight film from the early '80s with Sean Connery. Appalling film, appalling. Just so. In many ways, the Green Knight was really good. I just wish I could have seen it on a big screen. I was impressed by it. It's hard to impress me. I put it that way. Colleges and cannibals. It's very difficult to impress me on all sorts of levels. Great fun. Rosemary Sutcliffe's books are great. I think there's a bunch of stuff like that. I would have, let me see. I used to put them on my kids' reading list for my younger. I'm typing in reading list. Rosemary Sutcliffe. She was quite prolific, wasn't she? She had a fair. The Eagle of the Ninth series. That's her. Yeah. Let me just get a. So goodness, let's see. The Eagle of the Ninth, Silver Branch. So he's also referred to as Marcus, is linked by the Aquila family. So yeah, Roman stuff. Sword at Sunset, the Shield Ring, Three Legions, blah blah blah. Arthurian Lantern Bearers, Sword at Sunset, Tristan and Isolde, Sword in the Circle, Light Beyond the Forest, The Road to Camelot, and other children's novels. What's Warrior Scarlet, Knight's Fee, Beowulf. Yeah, I mean, there we go. Hydene's a Finn McCool. Bloodfeud, Sunhorse, Moonhorse. I mean, yeah, what a prolific author. Very much a person who's brought, the classical world, Greek, Roman history, that kind of thing, Arthurian myth, to young readers. The one that I've never read, by the way, that I'd really like to read is it T.H. White's The Once and Future King? I've never read that, although it's a very, very modern, but I would really like to have a go at it. Mallory's the one that I think I would enjoy. I like them all, to be honest, and I don't mind if it's a hard read or not. Started watching. Oh, right. Oh, here we go. On another of your recommendations, started watching Hard to Be a God. And while initially admiring the opening landscapes evocation of Flemish pastorals, particularly Brueggel's, the shit and mud became quickly off-putting. But do you understand the shit and mud? It's only half the fun. It's oh my god, it's incredible. And I know it's if you have no context to that film, if you don't know what Hard to Be a God is about, if you haven't read the book, you're in for a what the hell is this? If you have read the book, then you're just going, oh, I just sat like this for the way we watched it. Colleges, it's 3 hours long, so I watched it with my wife. We did 1 hour one day, did the next hour the next day, and did the third. It was subtitled black and white. Really wanted to pay attention to it. I absolutely adore it, and it's because I adore the book, and it's just like, rubbing shit in people's feet. It's just what. And again, if you've no context for, if you haven't read the book's not thick, folks. If you can read Hard to Be a God, I'd probably recommend reading it first before watching it, because you'll have what the hell is this? It is amazing. It really is. And I've only seen it once, and I'm definitely going to do a program on it. And the way I figured it was, I'll get to the point where I want to read Hard to Be a God again, because not that I've been into the Strugatsky brothers for maybe no less than about 10 years, maybe, I think, maybe a bit longer. I've already reread a couple of their books. The fact that they're rereadable is a good sign to me. I do like some films, honestly, so Colleges and Cannibals. Crimson Peak watched last night, was very good. Haven't seen it yet. You want Arthurian, watch the new Planet of the Apes trilogy. Haven't seen that either. In fact, I was kind of a bit aped out. I've watched I loved all the original Planet of the Apes stuff, watched the TV series, had a lunchbox when I was a kid. That's my job. There you go. I love Planet of the Apes. Some of the things that have been done to it recently, not so good. And I understand that the new trilogy is pretty good. So it's simply I haven't had a chance to watch it. Um, and it's kind of with a lot of these things, I think sometimes that they're doing, are they remaking it? What are they doing? Because I know the story, and I kind of, and again, are they going to reshape it? This kind of thing. I'm not too sure. Not much competition in Arthurian cinema lately, mind you. No, and as I said, I think most King Arthur films are consistently bad. And I think almost with any myth, I don't know, the last sort of thing. I don't know if anybody's seen Troy, the Brad Pitt abomination. And good God, who do these people think they are when they take these stories and go, oh, contemporary audiences wouldn't like it if we actually told them what happened at Troy, so we'll just make some shit up. It's unbelievable sometimes. I remember liking the Morte Arthur. Yes, Lancelot's good too. Was it Mallory? I seem to recall high school. Ooh, wow, many moons ago, Mallory in high school. That sounds like a good high school. Any king story will stand. there is something good about Arthur. And as I said, if we were talking about Tolkien wanting to create an English myth, and as in some ways, I used to look at the Arthur myth as English. I haven't as a long time. It really is a kind of hybrid of Celtic and Germanic myths. And as I said, every country in the United Kingdom, well, we'll say England, Scotland, Wales, and Ireland all have a claim to, and I'd argue probably Northern Ireland have a claim to him. So he's a fascinating character, and in terms of we can look at Paul Atreides and compare him to Arthur. Very much so, and the idea of the Camelot pattern is a fundamental to. In fact, that's what Herbert calls this. This Camelot pattern that we're following this hero through. So the whole King Arthur thing's very relevant to Dune. I'm in no way an Arthurian scholar of any kind whatsoever. This is purely a hobby for me. I enjoy this stuff. So that's not that I'm not a scholar anyway. Haven't been a scholar for a long time. So all of these things are me just doing my thing, guys. I'm just a person who likes to know their stuff, but I enjoy it. I wouldn't read this stuff if it wasn't good, to be honest. It's Bradolf Hitler. Very good. There was a TV series, Merlin, but I haven't seen it. Yeah. I think it's more of a kind of young person's, the BBC one recently. I can't think of is that a Borat reference? Bradolf Hitler. Very good. I thought the last Borat film was excellent. He's very talented, isn't he? Yeah. I don't know. I can't think of anything that springs to mind as being. There's probably King Arthur films and the old kind of Errol Flynn kind of swashbuckling type thing beforehand. And God, we've got who is it? Richard Harris and Camelot. We'll not speak of that. I like to push the panel. Yes, there we go. Probably the next best King Arthur film, I'd have to say. After those two is probably, you know what I'm going to say now, don't you? It's Monty Python and the Holy Grail. I think that's got more Arthurian chops than almost anything else. There you go. And as a friend of ours, a Northern Irish woman is in that film as well. She's the woman that the Knights who say need to. They say need to, and Oh, I must write her name down for you sometime. She's also the woman who sets fire to herself in all the books in Fahrenheit 451. So she's a real. There's a friend of mine up on the north coast, and she's actually his. I think she's his aunt or something like that. Which is quite interesting. Yeah, I remember the TV series Mister Merlin. Do you remember that one, Chai? That's going way way back. It's an American one. I quite like that. It was very. I think that must be 70s or something like that. You know. But there we go, folks. Listen, I've been chatting away all night. My throat is still a wee bit um, messed up. It wasn't so. As much as I could gab on, I'm going to give it a bit of a break because we have another big chapter, and I'll be back on tomorrow night, folks, with a few bits and pieces. So we'll have a. No, what is your favorite color? Blue? No, red. Got myself and my wife just watched that the other couple of weeks back. She'd not seen it before. I love that. Yeah. I have a wee thing on my phone that every time I get a text message comes in, it just goes, message for you. There's a wee arrow. Dong, message for you. So, you know, that one. There you go. Saying that, my phones are completely rubbish at the minute. Tell you what, give me 1 wee second very quickly. Oh, no, do you know what? I won't do that. Sorry, hang on. That's bad of me. We've got people here needing to get to sleep and that sort of stuff. I was thinking maybe we will do a wee sort of interlude with the book. We'll keep on with the chapters, but maybe on a Sci-Fi Friday, have a wee bit of a chat about Dune and some of these things, as we do, because it's always an open topic. You know, don't know that one, Mr. Merlin. Oh, it's an old one. We're going. I think Americans would probably know it, and you're talking kind of back in the days of, was it BJ and the Bear and all that kind of stuff. I don't know. All of our TV, that's about 90% of our television in Northern Ireland would be American. You know, about 10% from England, and very little local TV. You know, but there we go. But yes, I'll say good night, folks. Thank you very much for all of your comments and for joining me. And we'll get on with the next chapter on Sunday at 9 p.m. GMT +1, and we'll be popping on tomorrow night. For our usual little Sci-Fi Friday, we'll have a chat about anything science fiction, and if I get time, we'll have a look at this article by Michael Moorcock called Epic Pooh, which I think will be quite interesting for sort of Dune, Lord of the Rings fans, etc. You know, have a good one, Doc. Says thank you very much. Good night, Doc. Sweet dreams. Chaya says happy Passover to all celebrating tomorrow night. Thanks, Doc. Indeed, happy Passover to all people who are celebrating that. Chaya and Bojack Harkness says later, y'all. So, Paul, thanks. Yeah, thank you very much, guys. Look after yourselves. I'll say good night. Take care of yourselves, no matter where you are. Be safe. And we'll see you all soon. Thanks very much. Good night. Bye-bye. Do 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 ba 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 ba.